In a vibrant green forest, a young adventurer faces a large slime monster. The battle won, Ryuma exhales, a bead of sweat on his temple. A musical note chimes from the smartphone tucked into his belt pouch. He pulls out the device, wondering if the quest is now complete. His partner Fereas also checks her phone, a smile on her face. He reflects that he is a university student named Ryuma Sayonji. The story flashes back 3 hours, showing a modern apartment building. Inside his room, bookshelves are packed with his beloved manga collection. An anime figurine sits proudly on a dresser next to his television. Lounging, he checks his phone, pleased with his high rank in a game. He admits with a wry smile that he paid for it with his parents' money. His family is revealed to be a constellation of powerful elites. He feels like the sole ordinary person in a family of geniuses. He recalls his cousins always making fun of him for being plain. A friend he trusted once betrayed him, leaving him isolated. He remembers the pain of a girlfriend leaving him after being unfaithful. He laments that he has never achieved anything by his own strength. He is constantly surrounded by people with greedy and envious motives. He yearns for the day someone will see him for who he truly is. The thought echoes in his mind, a desperate, unspoken wish. Sitting in his room, he dismisses such a dream as impossible. His expression is one of weary resignation to his unfulfilling life. His eyes land on the spines of his fantasy light novels. He flops back, sighing that he wishes he could go to another world. A divine light appears, and a voice grants his heartfelt wish. He cries out as a brilliant light erupts, engulfing his entire room. He blinks, his vision clearing after the overwhelming flash. He finds himself in a simple wooden room, shouting in confusion. Looking out the window, he sees a dense forest instead of a city. The smartphone still in his hand chimes with a soft notification. He looks down at the screen, wondering what the notification could be. His face is a mask of pure confusion as he stares at the device. The phone's screen now displays a host of new fantasy-themed apps. He stands bewildered, wondering when these apps were installed. His eyes widen as he notices a notification badge on one icon. He sees the one over the mail app, which he's never used before. He opens the message and sees it is addressed to him by name. He reads the message from Murphim, the god of games and pleasure. The god explains this new world has magic and monsters, like his stories. A blush of dawning excitement spreads across his face as he understands. He shouts in pure elation, realizing he's been sent to another world. He desperately hopes that this incredible experience is not just a dream. The message explains his phone has been modified to be useful here. It also states that his race has been changed to help him survive. The divine message concludes with a simple request to enjoy this world. His eyes sparkle with pure, unadulterated joy and endless possibility. He imagines himself as a heroic adventurer with a sword and magic. He wonders what new race he has become, perhaps an elf or beastman. Sitting on the bed, he decides to check his status on the new app. His finger scrolls down the screen, stopping on his race and age. He calmly reads the word demigod, the meaning not yet sinking in. The shock finally hits and he leaps up, shouting the word in disbelief. His mind races, realizing a demigod is an absurdly overpowered being. He frantically uses the search app to look up the term demigod. The app displays an image of a divine being, defining the powerful race. He learns he is one of only 5, the pressure of it making him sweat. He remembers the envious faces from his past, fearing it will happen again. He looks up, recalling the god's final words telling him to enjoy it. A determined grin appears as he decides to embrace this new life. He declares his intention to enjoy this other world to the fullest. Back in the log cabin, he decides to dress the part of an adventurer. He fastens the sturdy leather belt around his waist. Now fully kitted out, he checks to make sure the equipment fits. He picks up his new sword, impressed by the feel of a real weapon. With his sword equipped, his phone chimes with a new alert. A notification badge appears over the God Quest application icon. He reads that he has cleared his first tutorial quest, earning rewards. He realizes he can use God points to purchase new skills and apps. He clenches his fist, thrilled by this incredible cheat-like power. With a burst of motivation, he declares that he will go all out. He begins his tutorial, fighting slimes in the clearing to level up. He recalls that the battles against the vicious goblins were the hardest. A memory of plunging his hand into a goblin's corpse makes him grimace. The visceral, bloody nature of the task was a shock to his system. He holds up a magic stone, realizing monsters don't just drop items. Completely exhausted, he collapses onto his bed at the end of the day. The next morning, he resumes his training, continuing the tutorial quests. He uses his points to acquire a map, a cloak, and new magic skills. Finally, the moment he's been waiting for, he prepares to cast a spell. A sphere of pure water forms in his hand, and he exclaims in delight. He consults the grimoire, finding the arcane instructions easy to follow. He takes aim, preparing to launch the water like a magic bullet. The projectile strikes the cabin wall with a small, sharp splash. He scratches his head, a bit disappointed by the spell's weak power. He checks his phone, pulling himself together to see the next quest. The new objective flashes on screen. Leave the forest and go to town. His face lights up with joy, excited to finally see a fantasy city. Wearing his new cloak, he confidently sets off from his starting area. Checking the map, he's surprised by how far he is from civilization. He follows the path on his phone, venturing deep into the forest. As the sun sets, he realizes he won't make it to town tonight. He decides to make camp, hoping to use magic to start a fire. Suddenly, monstrous, multi-eyed wolves burst from the dark woods. He draws his sword, realizing with a curse that they are hunting him. An overhead view shows him completely surrounded by the pack of beasts. The wolves lunge at him from all sides in a furious, coordinated attack. Gritting his teeth, he barely manages to parry a snapping jaw. A massive wolf attacks from his blind spot, its glowing eyes menacing. The force of the beast's charge knocks the sword from his hand. His weapon flies through the air, clattering uselessly on the ground. Ruma cries out in shock as his sword is violently knocked from his grasp. He finds himself surrounded by a pack of monstrous, multi-eyed wolves in the dark. The massive alpha wolf snarls, making Ruma realize he is about to be killed. For a fleeting moment, he thinks of praying to a god for help, but his expression hardens with resolve. He knows this time is different. Without a sword, he decides to use water magic, imagining a powerful weapon. He declares that from now on, he will do it himself, creating magical bullets. With a powerful shout, he unleashes the watery projectiles at the attacking wolves. The magical lances of water tear through the air with devastating speed and force. His attack rips through the beasts, the water cutting like sharpened steel. The wolves are pierced and thrown back, their bodies torn apart by his magic. He stands panting amidst the carnage, the battle having taken its toll. His eyes are wide with shock as he processes the violent scene he created. He collapses to the ground, exhausted, his gloved hand trembling from the effort. A tearful, triumphant grin spreads across his face as he realizes he won by himself. The night passes peacefully under the light of a full, cloud-swept moon. A new day dawns, the sky bright and clear over the vast forest. Ryuma finally emerges from the woods, panting as he sees a road and travelers. A knight in the group expresses his surprise at seeing other people from another world. Ryuma watches the approaching cart, his expression wary but hopeful. The cart driver calls out, noting his ragged state and asking if he's going to Fereas. Looking up, Ryuma confirms that yes, that is where he is headed. The man kindly offers him a ride, explaining that the city is still far away. Ryuma hesitates, wondering if he can trust these strangers, despite their kind offer. He decides to accept their kindness, knowing he has magic if trouble arises. With a deep bow, he gratefully accepts their offer, placing himself in their care. A friendly adventurer on the cart asks if Ryuma is a traveler. He explains that he and his companions are guarding the horse-drawn carriage. He introduces himself as Roma and the young woman beside him as Fereas. Ryuma introduces himself in return, accepting a friendly hand from Roma. The driver confirms Ryuma is aboard and announces that they are departing. Roma points ahead, cheerfully declaring their destination, the city of Fereas. The title page for Chapter 2, A New Apostle, is shown with the caravan. On the cart, Fereas asks Ryuma where he traveled from to get to Fereas. Ryuma vaguely says he's from the Far East and asks about their group. Roma insists on being called by his first name without any formal honorifics. He explains they're adventurers and that Fereas, his childhood friend, is a wind mage. Suddenly, Roma's stomach lets out a loud, insistent growl. He clutches his stomach, declaring that he's hungry and it's time for lunch. He pulls out a piece of hardtack, a simple meal for the road. While eating, Roma turns and asks Ryuma if he isn't going to eat anything. Ryuma says he's not hungry and will just have water, conjuring a perfect sphere. Roma and Fereas stare in stunned silence as Ryuma casually drinks the magic water. Roma comments on his skill, while Fereas asks if he is a powerful mage. Ryuma nervously insists that he is just an ordinary traveler. Fereas points out that he didn't chant any incantation to cast his spell. Her eyes sparkle as she explains that chantless casting is a secret art for masters. Ryuma is surprised, realizing the grimoire he read never mentioned such a thing. The driver is also impressed, grateful to have a skilled water mage on their journey. Roma praises his ability, but Ryuma thinks it's better than his demigod status being revealed. The cart finally crosses a stone bridge, passing through the city's main gate. Roma announces their arrival in the grand city of Fereas. Ryuma looks out at the bustling city, his face filled with pure wonder and excitement. He marvels at the sight of a real otherworld city, bustling with many people. He eagerly points out a weapon shop filled with adventurers and gleaming steel. He notices many other people from other worlds among the crowd at the market. The driver asks Ryuma his plans and he offers to help unload the cart. The group unloads crates and sacks from the cart in front of a building. With the last bag unloaded, the driver thanks Ryuma for his help. He asks if Ryuma has a place to stay, offering to introduce him to someone. Roma says they'll be staying in town and hopes to see Ryuma again soon. Roma and Fermes wave a cheerful goodbye as they part ways with Ryuma. Ryuma stands before the inn that the cargo master Lunas recommended to him. The innkeeper welcomes him, promising a very cheap rate due to the recommendation. Later, Ryuma flops onto his bed, completely exhausted from the long day's events. He reflects happily on the beautiful city and the new people he met. He suddenly sits up, remembering that he had completely forgotten about the tutorial. Checking his phone, he sees he's cleared a quest, earning a magical item bag. He tests the bag, realizing it's a convenient and discreet way to store his items. He scrolls on his phone, wondering what the next quest will be. He sees the next quest is to register at the Adventurers Guild and gets excited. He decides it's too late today and will go tomorrow, looking forward to it. Night falls over the city, the sky dark and dotted with distant stars. The next morning arrives with a bright sky over the city's rooftops. Ryuma wanders the streets, wondering where the Adventurers Guild is located. His phone's map app pinpoints the location, leading him to a familiar emblem. He looks up at the impressive multi-story stone building of the guild. He stands in awe before the grand ornate doors of the guild hall. He peeks inside, his expression a mix of nervousness and excitement. He is blown away by the sight of a real, bustling Adventurers Guild. He watches adventurers turn in monster parts for their rewards at the counter. Other adventurers gather around the quest board, looking for their next job. A familiar voice calls out his name from across the lively hall. It's Roma, who greets him with a friendly wave, surprised to see him again so soon. Roma asks if he's an adventurer, but Ryuma explains he's here to become one. Delighted by the news, Roma offers to show him the way to the registration counter. A professional receptionist, Renee, welcomes him to the Fereas branch of the guild. She explains the process will begin with a status check using the crystal ball. Ryuma looks down, a nervous sweat beading on his brow as he hesitates. He realizes the device will reveal his demigod status to everyone in the guild. Renee asks if something is wrong, and he can only stammer a weak denial. He closes his eyes, knowing he must proceed in order to complete the tutorial. He asks Renee not to be surprised by whatever the crystal reveals about him. With grim determination, he decides he has no choice and reaches for the crystal. A blinding pillar of pure white light erupts from the crystal, engulfing the hall. Roma rushes to his side, asking what just happened as Ryuma sweats nervously. Ryuma frantically waves his hands, begging them to keep what they saw a secret. Renee, the receptionist, looks completely flustered and overwhelmed by the event. She quickly regains her composure and offers to guide him to a private room. Ryuma sits alone in an office, thinking this is a pain, despite avoiding a public scene. Ryuma sits in a quiet office as the door clicks open. A large bald man introduces himself as Guildmaster Gimmel. Gimmel states that Ryuma's registration identified him as a demigod. Gimmel asks to confirm this, but Ryuma tells him to speak casually. He presents a more precise crystal ball for a final test. Resigned, Ryuma reaches out his hand to touch the crystal. A violent, explosive flash of white light erupts from the orb. Gimmel and Renee are thrown backward, their faces contorted in shock. When the light fades, the room is left in stunned silence. The Guildmaster drops forcefully to one knee before Ryuma. He declares Ryuma's status confirmed and promises a special card. Gimmel insists he cannot be casual with a demigod Sama. Renee, her face shadowed, nervously speaks up. She excitedly asks if the legends of a divine mark are true. Ryuma is confused, wondering if he has such a thing. A musical chime suddenly sounds from the pouch at his hip. He pulls out his phone, explaining it's a mail from Murphim. The god's message casually states the mark is on his shoulder blade. Gimmel points with a trembling finger, asking about the black slate. Ryuma explains it's a divine tool with abilities from his god. He relays the message, confirming the mark is on his shoulder. Renee gasps, her excitement growing at the revelation. She eagerly asks to see it, but Gimmel becomes scandalized. He scolds her for the impropriety and orders her out of the room. A dejected Renee trudges out of the office door. Now alone with Gimmel, Ryuma prepares to remove his tunic. Gimmel watches with a serious, intense expression as Ryuma turns. An intricate, glowing mark is revealed on Ryuma's bare shoulder. Gimmel swallows hard, the sight confirming everything beyond doubt. Ryuma redresses, apologizing for the unsightly display. Gimel formally welcomes him, promising an exclusive apostle registration. Ryuma questions the need for a special registration as Renee peeks in. He says a normal one is fine, but Gimel refuses, citing the grandmaster. Ryuma wonders aloud about this grandmaster of the guild. Gimel explains the guild was founded by the still-living apostle, Sumeragi Ryutaru. Ryuma is stunned to learn another demigod exists. He realizes from the name that the grandmaster is also Japanese. Renee re-enters the room, announcing her return. She presents a sleek silver card, his exclusive registration. She explains its many functions, including communication between apostles. The moment Ryuma takes the card, it flares with a brilliant light. A holographic figure appears, greeting the new apostle. He introduces himself as Sumeragi Ryutaru, the guild's grandmaster. Ryuma stares in utter shock at the hologram projected from the card. He can't believe this young man is the grandmaster. Ryutaru asks if he can be heard, noting Ryuma's magic isn't working. Ryuma introduces himself, and Ryutaru welcomes the new demigod. Ryutaru asks which god brought him here. He cringes upon learning it was the weirdo god, Murphim. He explains he founded the guild to conquer Murphim's dungeon trials. He mentions the world was in chaos back then. Ryutaru says their time is up but promises to talk more later. With a cheerful wave and a "see you later," the hologram vanishes. Ryuma is told his lengthy registration is now complete. Gimel assigns Renee to be Ryuma's personal guild liaison. Ryuma descends the stairs, thinking the process took a long time. Ryuma spots him from below, asking if he's okay. Ryuma joins his friends, assuring them he registered without issue. Ryuma is relieved and asks what Ryuma plans to do next. Ryuma decides he will start with a simple request. Ryuma suggests an herb-gathering quest, pointing to the board. Ryuma and Fereas offer to help, and Ryuma gratefully accepts. Ryuma looks at the quest board with a keen eye. Ryuma points out that there are also subjugation quests available. He identifies a Freda, which Fereas says they can take on later. Ryuma curiously asks about the guild rank system. Fereas explains the ranking pyramid, from novice up to hero. Fired up, Ryuma resolves to challenge himself and work hard. The trio approaches the counter to accept their chosen quest. Ryuma explains to the clerk that they're helping the new guy. The clerk asks if Ryuma is new, and he confirms he just registered. The clerk's face pales, realizing Ryuma might be the rumored apostle. He breaks into a cold sweat, completely flustered. He slams the counter, shouting that he'll get a proper staff member. Ryuma and Fereas are left baffled by his sudden outburst. Renee arrives, politely taking over and asking for their cards. Ryuma worries his demigod status will now be revealed. Ryuma calls his name, confused by his sudden hesitation. Ryuma reluctantly hands over his guild card to his friends. The card flares, projecting his name and his race, demigod. Ryuma's face contorts in absolute wide-eyed shock. Renee confirms the registration while Ryuma is still reeling. Ryuma can only stammer Ryuma's name, utterly speechless. He asks in disbelief if Ryuma is really a demigod. Ryuma looks away, apologizing for having deceived them. He worries this revelation will create distance between them. He suggests that perhaps he should just cancel the request. "No way!" Ryuma shouts, stepping forward with a determined look. He declares it doesn't matter, they'll help him to the end. Ryuma is deeply moved by his friend's unwavering acceptance. He agrees to proceed with the quest together as planned. As they cross the bridge out of the city, he explains himself. He admits that he is still new to this world and inexperienced. He asks them to please continue treating him as they always have. Ryuma waits anxiously for their response. Ryuma smiles, saying that despite everything, Ryuma is still Ryuma. Ryuma gives a heartfelt, blushing thank you to his friends. The three of them raise their fists in a determined cheer. The trio walks together into the lush, sun-dappled forest. Fereas points out the medicinal herb they are searching for. Fereas explains the herb they seek has distinctive heart-shaped leaves. Ryuma offers a friendly warning, "Be careful of monsters while searching." Ryuma diligently begins his search, crouching low in the tall forest grass. He pauses, realizing gathering 11 herbs in 2 hours is quite difficult. He thinks his map app would spoil the fun, just as a rustle sounds nearby. Suddenly, a vicious, bat-like monster screeches and dives straight at him. Startled, Ryuma realizes in a panic that his sword is in his inventory. Ryuma shouts a warning, shoving Ryuma aside as his sword strikes the beast. His friend turns with a worried expression, asking if Ryuma is all right. A massive, bear-like Freda emerges, the monster from a subjugation request. A swarm of smaller creatures descends from the sky, completely surrounding them. Fereas quickly begins chanting an incantation, her hands poised to cast a spell. A powerful gust of wind rips through the swarm, scattering the flying monsters. Fereas asks if they are all right as Roma turns to question Ryuma. He asks if Ryuma's water magic can be used for an attack. Ryuma confirms it. With a confident grin, Roma declares that the three of them will defeat them. Ryuma's eyes widen with determination as he readily agrees to the plan. Fereas announces she will use wind magic to disrupt the enemy's movements. Ryuma focuses his magic, knowing he must control its power to protect his friends. With a fierce cry of, "Let's go!" Roma signals their counterattack. The three adventurers launch into a coordinated assault against the monstrous swarm. Roma expertly cuts down a monster as the chaotic battle rages around them. Amidst the fray, he calls out Ryuma's name to get his attention. Ryuma unleashes a devastating barrage of dark water lances, tearing through the swarm. The monsters are obliterated by the powerful magic, much to Roma's astonishment. Roma presses the advantage, cutting through the remaining disorganized creatures with ease. The last of the monstrous creatures fall, their bodies littering the forest floor. A profound silence descends upon the clearing after their swift, decisive victory. "We did it!" Roma and Fereas cheer, throwing their arms around Ryuma in a hug. Roma thanks them as his new friends praise his incredibly powerful magic. Roma then asks if he can say one more thing to his new companion. He asks Ryuma to speak to them casually without using formal language. Fereas agrees, reminding him that they are companions who fought together. Ryuma is deeply moved, clutching his cloak as he realizes they are truly friends. With a warm, heartfelt smile, he agrees that he will do that. Outside the guild hall, Ryuma thanks his two new friends for their help. He tells them he'll be active in Fereas and to call on him anytime. They wave goodbye, eagerly planning to take on another quest together soon. Ryuma waves back with a bright smile, looking forward to it as well. Evening settles over the city of Fereas, the sky painted with clouds. In his quiet inn room, Ryuma sits on his bed, reflecting on the tutorial. He sees the quest is complete, rewarding him with points and a new skill. The final tutorial quest appears, its list of rewards astonishingly powerful. The final quest is simple: go to the church and offer a prayer. Confused by the divinity reward, he decides to use his phone's search function. The definition explains divinity as a stat that can lead an apostle to godhood. He worries about Murphim's plans, wanting only to be an ordinary adventurer. He decides he will visit the grand church the next day to complete the quest. He enters the vast, pillar-lined hall of the city's main church. Unsure how to pray, he decides to simply copy the other worshippers. He kneels and mentally calls out, announcing his presence to the god Murphim. Instantly, the world around him dissolves into an abstract pattern of brilliant light. Ryuma looks around in shock, his surroundings having completely vanished. He stands alone in a vast, ethereal chamber of light and colossal pillars. A cheerful young boy greets him by name from atop a massive pillar. The boy Murphim offers a friendly wave, his expression open and welcoming. Ryuma asks if this is Murphim, and the god cheerfully confirms it. Ryuma asks why he was brought to this world. Murphim's answer is simple. The god explains that he only wants Ryuma to enjoy this new world. Ryuma stands silently, taking in the god's simple yet profound words. Murphim tells him to enjoy himself, promising he will have fun watching. With a casual, "See you later," the god ends their divine meeting. Ryuma snaps back to reality, finding himself kneeling once more in the church. He looks around the vast hall, confirming he has returned to his world. His gaze is drawn to a statue at the front of the sanctuary. The statue is a perfect stone likeness of the god he just met. He smirks, understanding the god's message to enjoy life to the fullest. As he gets up to leave, his item bag chimes, signaling a message. He sees a strange, symbolic message, confirming the god is indeed watching. With a new sense of purpose, Ryuma strides out of the grand church. Outside, he taps his phone to accept the rewards for completing the tutorial. The phone suddenly flashes with a bright light, startling him with its intensity. It vanishes from his hand, leaving a magic circle before reappearing. He looks around in confusion, wondering what just happened to his smartphone. He sees the phone has reappeared with a new, sleeker user interface. He realizes he can now summon and dismiss his phone just by thinking. He understands this was the smartphone update he received as a reward. Checking the screen, he notices that his list of quests has grown. A new daily quest section has been added, offering repeatable tasks. He grins, excited by the prospect of grinding daily quests for rewards. The tutorial is over. He declares he will now enjoy this world fully. He immediately heads to the guild to accept a goblin subjugation quest. He sets off from the city, heading into the nearby forest alone. A group of snarling goblins charges at him, brandishing crude weapons. With a simple gesture, he unleashes water lances that effortlessly kill them. He walks through the quiet forest, remarking on how easy the win was. He grimaces, complaining that butchering them for proof is the hardest part. Suddenly, his thoughts are interrupted by a desperate scream for help. He finds a young adventurer fighting off a pack of monstrous wolves. One of the beasts lunges, sinking its fangs deep into the adventurer's shoulder. Ryuma instantly prepares to cast a water magic spell to save him. His magic slams into the wolf pack, sending the creatures flying away. The powerful attack neutralizes the threat in a single, decisive blow. He rushes to the fallen man, asking if he's okay and telling him to hang on. He materializes a healing potion directly from his smartphone's inventory app. He supports the injured man's head and urges him to drink the potion. A golden light glows as the grievous wound magically knits itself closed. The young man's pained expression softens as the healing magic takes effect. Ryuma looks on with a small, relieved smile as the potion works. The adventurer, now healed, thanks Ryuma and introduces himself as Ruin. With a kind smile, Ryuma introduces himself to the rescued adventurer. Ruin fervently declares Ryuma his savior, insisting he must show his gratitude. He passionately asks Ryuma to name anything he wants as repayment. Realizing Ruin is serious, a clever idea begins to form in Ryuma's mind. He proposes they play a game, which the eager Ruin accepts. Ryuma thinks this is perfect for his quest and to test a new skill. The name of his new formidable ability is revealed, Game Master. This power allows him to control games and instantly detect any cheating. With a knowing smile, Ryuma decides on the game they will play. He holds up a large, ornate silver coin, proposing a simple coin toss. With a flick of his thumb, he sends the coin spinning high. Ryuma asks Ruin to make his call, who excitedly shouts out, "Heads!" A faint wisp of magical energy glows around Ryuma's hand as he focuses. With the outcome decided, he calmly states that he will choose tails. He reveals the coin on his glove, showing that tails was the winner. Ruin eagerly asks to play again, and Ryuma, understanding, agrees. Ryuma realizes his power allows him to change the coin's face at will. He then controls the next 5 tosses, ensuring Ruin wins every single time. Ryuma proposes a wager, betting a goblin magic stone against Ruin's herbs. Ruin enthusiastically calls heads, while Ryuma chooses tails for the bet. Ryuma reveals the coin as heads, declaring Ruin the winner of their wager. As Ruin celebrates, a pouch of herbs materializes in his hands. Ryuma explains that the wagered items automatically transfer to the winner. He reflects on his new ability, realizing its convenience and potential danger. Ruin tries to give back the winnings, but Ryuma cheerfully refuses his offer. Ruin insists they return to the city together, asking Ryuma to wait. Back in the city, the two adventurers find a local inn. Ruin invites Ryuma to join him for a meal, and he gladly accepts. As they eat, Ruin praises the inn's surprisingly delicious food. Finding the inn cheap, Ryuma decides he will stay there for the night. They adorably agree that they will simply share a room. In their shared room, Ruin stretches while Ryuma sits on his bed. Ryuma checks his phone, planning to use points to boost his magic. Ruin's eyes sparkle with curiosity as he asks about the magic tool. Ryuma recalls the guild's crystal ball and confirms it's something similar. Ruin wistfully says he wants to earn enough to buy his own tools. Hearing this, a thoughtful and clever expression crosses Ryuma's face. With a decisive point, he offers Ruin a part-time job. Ruin looks up from his bed, completely surprised by the proposition. He asks what a part-time job is, and Ryuma clarifies it's a request. Ryuma will hunt goblins, while Ruin will extract their magic stones. He proposes a simple 50-50 split of all the profits they make. Ruin is overjoyed, realizing he can finally afford to buy new equipment. Ryuma smiles warmly, happy that he is able to help his new friend. They agree to start their new partnership the day after tomorrow. That night, while Ruin sleeps, Ryuma stays awake with his phone. He checks his quest log, deciding to tackle a normal quest tomorrow. With his remaining god points, he decides to buy new magic skills. He purchases fire, wind, and earth magic, rounding out his arsenal. He feels a tangible surge of energy as his magic power increases. Feeling well prepared, he suddenly notices something new in the god store. He scrolls past his skills and sees an app called Fairy's Miniature Garden. Wondering if it's a smartphone game, he decides to install it. The app opens to a simple screen showing a small potted sprout. He sees a first free gacha button and taps it with excitement. A tiny, chubby fairy king with a crown appears, sparkling with power. Ryuma is thrilled, immediately recognizing its SSR rarity, but sees it's nameless. He types on the screen, bestowing the name Phonon upon the fairy. The newly named Phonon zips happily around the screen, much to Ryuma's delight. Phonon then offers him an item, a fairy island's medicinal herb. To Ryuma's astonishment, a real, physical herb materializes on his bed. He realizes with excitement that he can send items to the fairy too. He plays with the app, wondering if the plant is the world tree. He ends up getting completely engrossed in the game all through the night. The next morning, Ruin wakes him, finding him still bleary-eyed and playing. A transition panel shows the city architecture as a new day begins. Outside the inn, Ryuma tells Ruin his plans and they part ways. Ryuma walks alone down a forest path, beginning his goblin hunt. He checks his map app, which shows a large concentration of monsters ahead. Peeking from behind a tree, he confirms that he has found his target. He discovers a massive goblin nest teeming with dozens of the creatures. He resolves to test his new magic and wipe them all out at once. He unleashes his earth magic, launching a volley of deadly rock projectiles. The rocks smash into the goblins, their skulls bursting on impact. The goblin nest erupts into chaos as the survivors charge forward. Ryuma's eyes narrow as he prepares to unleash his next spell. He summons a storm of razor-sharp wind blades from his fingertips. The wind magic slices through the charging goblins, cutting them down. With a confident smirk, he prepares to finish off the remaining creatures. Suddenly, a much larger hobgoblin emerges, the boss of the nest. The hulking beast roars and charges directly at Ryuma. Ryuma reaches out a hand, commanding the charging monster to freeze. The hobgoblin is crushed by an unseen force, its body imploding violently. Ryuma lets out a breath, admitting that was a surprisingly close call. He uses his phone's inventory app to collect all the goblin corpses. He checks his monster encyclopedia, confirming the boss was a hobgoblin. He decides to purify the area to prevent any further monster evolutions. He gathers his divine energy, ready to use the power he recently gained. He unleashes his sacred magic, bathing the entire nest in holy light. Brilliant columns of pure light descend upon the desecrated clearing. The magic creates a sanctuary where monsters cannot approach, a divine power. Ryuma stares in awe at the sparkling, purified remnants of the nest. He smiles, pleased that the powerful spell works so perfectly. His phone chimes, confirming his quest is complete and a new skill is acquired. He eagerly decides to test his new Magic Boost skill immediately. He focuses his will, and his sword begins to float in the air. He understands that he can now imbue objects with his magical power. With a simple gesture of his hand, he directs the floating sword. He summons a second sword, sending them both flying in a deadly dance. Surrounded by his swirling blades, he feels an exhilarating rush of power. Ryuma revels in his newfound power, thinking how much fun it is. He realizes with a start that he has lost track of time and must return. The scene transitions to the city at night, under a sky full of stars. The next morning, Ryuma tells Ruin this is a good spot to start butchering. Ruin recognizes Ryuma's phone as a powerful and rare magic tool. Ryuma summons a massive pile of goblin corpses for them to process. Ruin can only stammer in agreement, shocked by the sheer number of bodies. The two adventurers stand in the quiet, grassy clearing, ready to work. They begin the gruesome task of carving magic stones from the goblin corpses. Ruin struggles to lift the heavy body of an exceptionally large goblin. He asks in disbelief if the creature is a hobgoblin, which Ryuma confirms. Ruin wonders if Ryuma is a high-ranking adventurer to have done this alone. Ryuma downplays it, saying he just used long-range magic, which amazes Ruin. Ruin complains of being hungry, and Ryuma suggests foraging for some nuts. With their work done, Ryuma cheerfully suggests they go get paid at the guild. The sun sets over the grand building of the Adventurers Guild in Fereas. Their haul earns them a staggering 2,132 venas piled high on the counter. Both Ryuma and Ruin are speechless at the massive amount of money. Ryuma hands a pouch of coins to Ruin, calling it his pay for the day. As they celebrate, a stern voice calls out, addressing Lord Ryuma. Guildmaster Gimmel appears, saying he has an urgent message for Ryuma. Ruin and Ryuma are surprised by the Guildmaster's unusually serious tone. Gimmel tells Ruin to head back to the inn, needing to speak to Ryuma alone. Gimmel leads Ryuma to a private room, the heavy door closing behind them. He reveals that an envoy from the King of Ferranda has arrived for an audience. Ryuma breaks into a cold sweat, completely shocked by the news. He shouts in utter disbelief, unable to comprehend the mention of the king. The chapter title page shows a flustered Ryuma reacting to the shocking summons. Ryuma asks if he can refuse, but Gimmel insists that he should go. Gimmel explains that as a demigod, Ryuma's standing is higher than the king's. Ryuma considers this, knowing he can't be rude to the country's ruler. He decides it's best not to create unnecessary friction in his new home. Concluding it's better to meet them, Ryuma agrees to the audience. He requests a day to prepare himself mentally for the important meeting. Gimmel agrees, telling him to come to the guild when he is ready. Ryuma walks through the city at night, the weight of the news on him. The scene settles on the inn, its windows warmly lit against the dark. The next morning, the innkeeper confirms that Ruin has secured their shared room. Ruma quietly pushes open the door to their room. He finds Ruin asleep and smiles, thanking him for taking care of things. Later, Ruin washes his face in a wooden basin, splashing water on himself. He asks Ryuma who he really is, curious about the guildmaster's behavior. Ruma agrees that Gimel's formal attitude was very unusual. Deciding his friend can be trusted, he reaches into his cloak for his guild card. He shows Ruin the silver card, its holographic text proclaiming him a demigod. Ruin stumbles back in shock, stammering about the rumors of an apostle. Ruma is flustered, trying to stop his friend from acting so formally. He pleads with Ruin not to worry and to treat him just as he did before. He grabs Ruin's hand, reminding him that they are friends who work together. With tears in his eyes, Ryuma says it's lonely when friends treat him differently. Moved by his sincerity, Ruin tells him not to look so sad and agrees. Ruin promises to drop the honorifics, and Ryuma is visibly relieved. Ruin suggests they get dinner, but Ryuma wants to do something else first. They arrive outside a weapon shop marked by a suit of armor and shields. Inside, they are impressed by the wide variety of weapons on display. Ruin asks to try on some new equipment, and Ruma encourages him to. Ruma watches with a smile, thinking how much boys love this kind of thing. Ruin holds a new sword, looking uncertain as he weighs his options. He shows Ryuma two swords, admitting he is having trouble deciding. Ruma sheepishly admits that he doesn't know anything about weapon quality. He tells Ruin to just choose the one that he feels is better for him. A cheerful voice greets them. It's Roma, who needs a new sword after fighting orcs. Ruma happily introduces Roma and Ruin, calling them both his friends. He asks the more experienced Roma to help Ruin choose some new armor. Roma suggests a lightweight buckler and vambrace, perfect for agile defense. Ruin gratefully accepts the advice, deciding on the recommended gear. Ruma notices Roma's own vambrace is quite worn out and asks about it. Roma admits with a sigh that his budget is a little tight for an upgrade. Ruma looks on with a thoughtful expression, an idea forming in his mind. He announces that he will buy the new equipment for Ruin as a gift. He insists, saying he wants to ensure his friend is well protected. A blushing Roma is touched by his friend's kindness and thanks him. Ruma also gives Ruin some healing potions, which he gratefully accepts. Ruma suggests they all get dinner, and Roma says he knows a great place. Fereas waves to them from the patio of a beautiful, upscale restaurant. The four friends sit together, admiring the stylish and elegant establishment. Ruma reflects that most food in this world has been simple grilled fare. His eyes widen as he sees a picture of onigiri, Japanese rice balls, on the menu. He shouts in disbelief, pointing at the menu as his friends look on, confused. Fereas proudly explains that the dish was invented by the apostle Hana Higuchi. She elaborates that Hana is a revered figure who founded the land of Hinamoto. Ruma understands immediately, realizing it makes sense if she's also Japanese. A waitress arrives with their order, announcing that their food is ready. A delicious-looking hamburger steak and a massive sandwich are presented. The three boys stare at the food, their faces lighting up with pure delight. Plates of mouth-watering pasta and another juicy hamburger steak are shown. Fereas is ecstatic, her eyes sparkling with joy at the sight of the meal. The friends eat, marveling at the incredible taste of the familiar dishes. Ruma is moved, amazed that he can eat such delicious food in this world. They all agree the food is wonderful, thanking Hana Higuchi for her genius. Ruma smiles warmly, thinking how nice it is to see his friend so happy. Over after dinner coffee and tea, Ryuma asks Fereas what she did that day. She explains she was at the church, studying holy magic to heal wounds. Roma proudly declares that he will protect Fereas while she supports them. Ruin wistfully says that he would like to have companions like that too. Roma immediately offers him a spot in their party. He gives Ruin a thumbs up, saying they can all do their best together. Ruin is moved to tears by the heartfelt invitation. He joyfully accepts, and the new party is officially formed. Fereas suddenly remembers something and asks Ryuma if he knows about sacred magic. Fereas gasps, her face flushing with excitement and a touch of shock. Ruma asks Fereas to explain the difference between holy and sacred magic. She explains that sacred magic can heal anything and even resurrect the dead. Roma, completely amazed, asks Ryuma if he possesses such incredible power. All his friends stare at him with intense, expectant eyes. Ruma jolts up in a panic, startling his companions with his sudden movement. He frantically calls for the bill, trying to rush everyone out of the restaurant. The group now stands in a quiet alley outside the bustling eatery. Ryuma apologizes for his outburst, and Roma says he is sorry as well. Ruma insists he isn't angry, just flustered, and apologizes for worrying them. Roma and Fermes exchange a glance, still a bit dazed by his strange behavior. To make up for it, Ruma winks, promising to treat them again soon. His friends' spirits lift, and they eagerly agree to find another great restaurant. Ryuma and Fermes decide on their separate plans for the following day. He wishes his friends well as they part ways on the city street. Waving goodbye, he reflects that the fun evening has calmed his nerves. He clenches his fist, feeling prepared to face the next day's formal meeting. The next morning arrives, showing the impressive facade of the Adventurers Guild. A finely polished dress shoe steps onto the cobblestone, signaling the day's formality. Ryuma, dressed in an elegant suit and cloak, thanks Renee for the outfit. Renee smiles, telling him it suits him well as she gestures to a carriage. Inside, Ryuma steels his resolve for the important audience with the king's envoy. The carriage arrives at a grand mansion, the chosen location for the meeting. Ryuma remarks on the magnificent building as he steps from the carriage. He is greeted by a long line of servants, bowing in perfect unison. They all welcome Apostle Sama, leaving Ryuma completely stunned by the reception. A butler named Gawain introduces himself and offers to guide the apostle inside. Ryuma whispers to Gimel, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the welcome. Gimel explains that an apostle is revered even more highly than the king. The heavy doors to the meeting chamber swing open before them. Ryuma is led into a grand room with a long, polished conference table. A woman in a military uniform introduces herself as Suar Marquis Gaufo. An older nobleman follows, introducing himself as Sansen Earlson Mal. Gimel and Renee introduce themselves as Ryuma's support team from the Fereas Guild. Ryuma takes a slow, steadying breath, preparing himself to speak. He introduces himself as Ryuma, blessed by the grace of the god Murphim. The two nobles look on with expressions of deep respect. Suar informs him that she bears a message from His Majesty the King. The king's letter expresses his profound welcome to the apostle. The message formally invites Ryuma to the royal castle to forge a friendship. Earlson Mal then presents several trays laden with gifts from the king. The gifts include precious metals, large jewels, and official parchment scrolls. Ryuma is shocked by the opulence, asking if he can truly accept them. He accepts and decides to offer a gift in return, using his smartphone. He materializes legendary items, fairy herbs, a leaf from the world tree, and a potion. The entire room, including his own companions, is shocked by the impossible gifts. The Earl declares them great treasures and asks Ryuma to convey a message. Ryuma formally accepts the king's invitation, promising to visit the capital. He adds that he has also prepared his own gifts to bring to the king. The entire assembly bows deeply as the formal audience concludes. A text bubble announces that the meeting has officially ended. The scene shifts to a private, comfortably furnished waiting room. Ryuma slumps onto a sofa, sighing with relief that the tense meeting is over. Renee asks for his permission to review the scrolls he received from the king. The parchments are unrolled, revealing text written in an arcane script. Renee explains the scrolls grant him land, an airship license, and a formal pact. Ryuma looks up in surprise, questioning the meaning of a pact. A handshake symbolizes the alliance. The kingdom will not act against him. He realizes with a jolt that the kingdom has become his official protector. The immense weight of this shared destiny makes him feel unprepared. Overwhelmed, he covers his face just as his phone chimes with a message. Murphim's voice reminds him to enjoy this world freely, promising divine protection. Ryuma's eye widens as he absorbs the god's comforting words. He relaxes, deciding not to overthink things and to simply enjoy his new life. He tells Renee and Gimel that he is ready to leave the mansion. With a determined smile, he informs them there is a place he wants to go. His destination is the impressive multi-story building of the Commercial Guild. The scene shows the rooftops of the city under a partly cloudy sky. He walks through the guild hall, deciding to establish a base of operations. As he enters, a polite voice welcomes him from off-panel. A well-dressed man introduces himself as Melini, the guildmaster. Ryuma is shocked that the guildmaster already knows who he is. Melini explains that for a merchant, information is vital and asks his business. Ryuma states he wants to buy land and a house, noting how fast word travels. The guildmaster invites him to a private room to discuss the details. Melini lays out several property maps and listings on a large table. Ryuma sits quietly, carefully reviewing the various options before him. He finds a listing that meets all his requirements and makes his decision. Melini is surprised by his quick choice, but Ryuma says good things go fast. A stack of gold bars represents the hefty price of 6 harda. Melini offers to arrange for servants, quoting a monthly wage for them. Ryuma requests 4 servants and offers a higher wage, which Melini accepts. A carriage travels down a cobblestone street, taking Ryuma to his new property. He is utterly gobsmacked by the sight of his new magnificent mansion. Malini holds open the carriage door, welcoming him to the estate. Ruma expresses his delight with the property, saying he'll handle some preparations. The guildmaster assures him that all properties are kept in pristine condition. An immaculate dining room reinforces the high standard of maintenance. Malini promises to bring the newly hired servants the following day. Ryuma relaxes on a chaise, declaring this his new base of operations. His phone chimes, displaying a mail notification from his fairy Fanon. The message is from Murphim, explaining how to set a teleportation point. Ryuma reflects that he should have used the convenient app more often. He muses that he could have saved Ruin with it, resolving to use it now. The next morning, the grand mansion stands under a bright, clear sky. Malini greets Ryuma, announcing that he has brought the new servants. The staff, Gionis, Ruamaria, Mariana, and Wellnan, introduce themselves with a bow. Malini presents their employment contracts, which include non-disclosure agreements. Ryuma stands before his new staff, ready to give his first instructions. He reviews their proposed daily schedule, officially becoming master of the house. Ryuma confirms the staff will receive 3 daily breaks, much to their astonishment. The head butler, Jonas, explains they previously worked from dawn until dusk without rest. Ryuma insists they rest when unwell, but warns them not to slack off on their duties. Overcome with gratitude for such kindness, the entire staff thanks their new master. In the grand dining hall, Ryuma is served a meal by his diligent maid, Mariana. The butlers and maids work efficiently, polishing the magnificent staircase of the mansion. Ryuma inspects the well-stocked pantry with his staff, taking stock of his new home. The stately and elegant exterior of Ryuma's new mansion stands against a cloudy sky. Ryuma relaxes on a sofa, pleased that his staff is working hard and he can rest. He pulls out his phone, deciding to check his daily quests and plan his next adventure. The screen displays a list of new objectives, all centered around exploring dungeons. He recalls that the god Murphim was the one who created these strange dungeons. A fire of determination lights up in his eyes as he resolves to take on the challenge. Outside the grand mansion, Ryuma makes his decision to set out on a new quest. Dressed in his adventurer's gear, he eagerly heads off for his first dungeon crawl. He travels to a rocky, forested area, spotting other adventurers gathered nearby. His attention is captured by a strange and massive structure looming in the distance. He sees a colossal, spiraling white pillar, realizing it must be the dungeon entrance. His phone chimes with a notification as he approaches the otherworldly structure. Touching the pillar, he is transported into a vast cavern filled with glowing crystals. His phone buzzes in his hand, its screen glowing with a newly arrived message. An image of Murphim appears, cheerfully welcoming him to the dungeon he created. The god explains he built the dungeon in a ruined world to generate items. Ryuma sweats nervously, deciding it's best not to dwell on the term ruined world. He begins his first dungeon exploration, venturing alone into the vast, silent cavern. A sudden, sharp sound from the darkness puts him on high alert as he whirls around. A monstrous, multi-eyed bat swoops down from the ceiling, its fangs bared to attack. With a calm and focused expression, he prepares to counter the monster's assault. He effortlessly dispatches the creature with a single, powerful blast of his magic. The monster dissolves into light, leaving behind a magic stone and a sharp fang. He realizes he doesn't need to butcher monsters here and decides to press onward. He continues his journey, easily defeating monsters and gathering valuable materials. He opens a treasure chest, discovering a valuable rosary and other rare items inside. Pleased with his progress, he suddenly notices something disturbing lying up ahead. He discovers the mangled and blood-soaked corpse of another adventurer on the ground. His eyes widen in pure horror at the brutal and unexpected sight of a dead body. Overcome with revulsion, he quickly turns away from the gruesome scene. He hears someone retching nearby, another adventurer sickened by the horrific discovery. His earlier excitement vanishes, replaced by anger at the god's twisted idea of fun. Deciding to leave, he turns back, only to realize that he is completely lost. The dark, menacing passages of the cavern seem to close in around him. Panic sets in as he breaks into a desperate run, searching for a way out. His face is a mask of anxiety and exertion as he sprints through the labyrinth. He spots a light ahead and emerges into a larger cavern, finding other adventurers. He approaches the party, asking if they can please show him the way to the exit. The stern leader, Celtion, scoffs at his light gear, asking if he wants to die. Ryuma apologizes, explaining it's his first time in a dungeon and he is a novice. Celtion grudgingly agrees to guide him out, since they were leaving anyway. He chides Ryuma, telling him he should have at least brought a map. Ryuma realizes with utter horror that he completely forgot about his phone's map app. The friendly swordsman, Shion, tells his stern companion not to be so harsh. Sean introduces himself and his party, then asks for Ryuma's name. Ryuma introduces himself and gratefully accepts their offer to guide him out. A shot shows the towering dungeon pillar against the sky as they safely exit. Once outside, Ryuma sincerely thanks the party for their help in getting him out. The young novice Mizari offers him a handful of coins as a token of gratitude. She insists he take it, explaining it's her family's rule to repay kindness. She happily explains that the money will help them buy medicine for her sick sister. Her brother describes the terrible illness that slowly blackens the eyes, causing blindness. Celtian explains he took Mizari into his party because she became an adventurer for her sister. Mizari states with determination that it is now her turn to help her sister. Her heartfelt words resonate deeply with Ryuma, striking a painful, familiar chord. He murmurs the words, "an older sister," his thoughts turning to his own past. He remembers his childhood friend Saki, who was like an older sister to him. A warm memory shows her gently ruffling his hair as he adored her in return. The idyllic memories are shattered by the stark, sudden image of a car crash. He sadly recalls her funeral portrait, the pain of her loss still present. A powerful resolve forms within him. He no longer cares if his secret is revealed. His eyes burn with a fierce determination, consumed by the desire to help them. He turns to the brother, stating that he might be able to cure the illness. The party is skeptical, questioning how he could possibly cure an incurable disease. Ryuma holds up his guild card, asking them to promise to keep his secret. The card flares to life, holographically displaying his identity: Ryuma Sayonji, demigod. The elf Riord and Mizari stare in stunned silence, their eyes wide with disbelief. Riord immediately drops to one knee, bowing his head in profound reverence. He shouts at his companions to quickly lower their heads before such a great being. He declares that Ryuma is an apostle, a being at the very pinnacle of all races. Ryuma, flustered by the display, quickly tells them all to please stand up. Mizari asks with desperate hope if an apostle can truly cure any illness with magic. Ryuma confirms that he can use the magic, though it will be his first time. Mizari and her brother are stunned into silence by his incredible, hopeful claim. The brother bows deeply, apologizing profusely for his earlier impertinence. With tears streaming down his face, he begs Ryuma to save his sister, Riord. Ryuma offers a small, confident smile and agrees that he will give it a try. Mizari bursts into her sister's room, announcing she's brought someone amazing. The party enters a simple room where the ailing Riord sits weakly in her bed. Mizari introduces Ryuma, explaining that he is here to cure her sister's illness. Riord, her eyes dim, dismisses them, saying her disease is incurable and hopeless. Celtian gently encourages her to have faith, asking Ryuma to please begin. Ryuma gives a slight, reassuring nod to the worried group of adventurers. He explains to Riord that he will cure her with a special power from a god. Riord can only manage a weak, hesitant yes in response to his words. The rest of the party watches with bated breath, their faces full of awe and hope. A brilliant, warm light emanates from Ryuma, enveloping Riord in its gentle glow. The creeping darkness in her eyes begins to recede under the sacred light's touch. She raises a trembling hand to her face, feeling the miraculous power at work. Her eyes flutter open, wide with disbelief as her vision begins to clear. She can see her sister's tear-streaked face, clearer than it has been in years. The two sisters embrace, weeping with overwhelming joy and relief at the miracle. The entire party celebrates, surrounding the sisters in a joyful, tearful group hug. Ryuma looks on, flustered, as he is told how great the day was. He reflects that he only sought self-satisfaction, but is moved by their pure joy. Tears well up in Ryuma's eyes, filled with a profound sense of happiness. He thinks to himself that he is truly glad everything worked out so well. Mizari and her brother bow deeply, offering their heartfelt thanks to Ryuma. Riord insists on repaying him, promising she will do absolutely anything he asks. Ryuma, flustered, says he will think about it and makes a hasty departure. He decides to consider her offer later, still unsettled by the beautiful girl's intensity. 3 days later, the family is shown happy and healthy once more. Ryuma reflects that Riord is fully recovered, having told her to contact him if needed. At the guild, he reports buying a house and exploring a dungeon, hiding that he got lost. He decides to let the guild handle opportunists, promising to repay them for the help. From his grand new mansion, Ryuma decides to take the rest of the day off. He thinks about his daily quests and his thriving fairies miniature garden game. Browsing his phone, he notices a new section for difficult god quests. His phone suddenly buzzes violently in his hand, startling him completely. The screen flashes red with an emergency quest to subjugate a swarm of wyverns. Ryuma stares in shock, shouting in disbelief at the sudden, dangerous mission. He checks the map, realizing the wyverns are heading straight for the city of Fereas. Panicked, he decides he must immediately go to the guild and warn Gimel. Ryuma bursts into the guildmaster's office, shouting that it is an emergency. He finds Gimel in a meeting with a calm, elegantly dressed young man. He apologizes for interrupting, but the young man says it is no problem. Gimel, with a worried look, notes that Ryuma seems to be in serious trouble. Ryuma urgently explains that a massive swarm of wyverns is approaching the city. The young man calmly asks for confirmation and inquires as to who Ryuma is. Gimel introduces the young man as Nan and Ryuma as the apostle. Nan expresses mild surprise, recognizing Ryuma from the rumors he has heard. He stands and formally introduces himself as Wyvern, a hero offering his assistance. Ryuma agrees, though he is internally confused by the title of hero. Nan asks if Ryuma is tracking the wyverns, and Ryuma confirms, holding his phone. Looking at a map, Gimel grimly estimates the swarm will arrive in 5 days. Nan traces their path, confirming the 5-day timeline from their current position. He speculates the wyverns are coming down from the mountains to gather food. Gimel realizes with horror that the town of Fortlo will be annihilated by the swarm. Ryuma asks how long it would take to get there, knowing teleportation is not an option. Gimel estimates 2 days by fast horse, unsure if they can make it in time. Ryuma declares they must go and intercept the wyverns to save the town. Wyvern listens to Ryuma's determined declaration, his expression unreadable. He smiles, agreeing to go, confident that a hero and an apostle can succeed. Ryuma thanks him, and Wyvern replies that he could not simply stand by and watch. They resolve to depart at once, while Gimel arranges for horses and reinforcements. The demigod and the hero ride at full speed out of the city. As they ride, Wyvern asks about Ryuma's black slate, his smartphone. Wyvern remarks that the apostle seems to have many interesting and useful abilities. Ryuma turns the conversation, asking Wyvern what exactly a hero is. A diagram explains a hero is a high human who has surpassed level 100. Ryuma is amazed and asks Wyvern's current level. The hero replies that it's 381. Shocked by the high number, Ryuma comments that Nan seems very young. Nan laughs, revealing he is 84 years old, his aging having stopped at 24. He explains that with a lifespan of centuries, he is still considered a youth. Ryuma gazes at the hero with a newfound and profound respect. He reflects that Wyvern earned his power, while he was simply granted his. Wyvern humbly insists Ryuma is stronger and that he will learn by watching him. A blank panel signifies the passage of time on their journey. Another blank transition panel as their journey continues. Nan announces that they should be arriving at the town shortly. They are met by a man running towards them, frantically waving his arms. The man shouts a warning, telling them wyverns have already appeared in the town. One realizes with grim certainty that their warning mission has failed completely. Ryuma tells the man that they have come to fight, urging him to flee to safety. Cursing that they didn't make it in time, Ryuma urges Wyvern to hurry. They see the town of Fortlo in the distance, ablaze and swarming with monsters. Ryuma and Wyvern look on in horror at the utter devastation before them. The mangled head of a massive wyvern lies on the ground as they prepare to enter. Inside the town, chaos reigns as citizens run screaming from the attacking wyverns. The scene is one of pure terror as the beasts destroy everything in their path. Ryuma's expression hardens, his eyes filled with cold determination. Wyvern declares that they must go as they cannot allow this massacre to continue. Ryuma taps his phone, converting all of his god points into raw magic power. A visible aura of energy crackles around his hand, surprising Wyvern. He clenches his fist, feeling the immense power surge through him. Together, they charge into battle, ready to take down the entire swarm. A title page shows the chaos of the battle, marking the start of the next chapter. Ryuma sees civilians in danger and tells Wyvern he is rushing on ahead. He uses wind magic to launch himself forward, intercepting a diving wyvern. Wyvern moves with blinding speed, his weapon a blur as he cuts down a beast. He carves a devastating path through the swarm with graceful, lethal strikes. The wyverns snarl and recoil, unable to keep up with the hero's assault. Wyvern leaps through the air, dispatching another monster with contemptuous ease. Ryuma unleashes a torrent of magic, obliterating a group of wyverns. A massive wyvern is engulfed in a powerful, destructive spell. Nan lands gracefully on the cobblestones, surrounded by chaos. A defeated wyvern plummets from the sky, crashing to the ground. Wyvern chuckles, impressed and pleased that Ryuma is a true, powerful apostle. A wyvern opens its maw, gathering energy for a powerful breath attack. Ryuma quickly erects a magic shield, bracing for the impact of the blast. The shockwave alone is staggering, and he clutches his head in pain. He leaps onto a wyvern's back, deciding to lure the fight outside the town. Landing in a clearing, he determines this is a better place for a full-scale battle. He dispatches the wyvern he was riding with a powerful, concentrated blast of magic. He curses, realizing he failed to finish off one of the beasts in the chaos. The remaining wyverns in the sky turn their full attention towards him. He stares them down, declaring that he will not let a single one escape. He raises his hand, preparing to unleash a massive spell upon the swarm. Suddenly, a colossal barrier of wind erupts from the ground around the town. Nan stands atop the barrier, pleased with his magic that now contains the threat. He lands beside Ryuma, ready to finish the fight now that the town is safe. Together, the demigod and the hero cut through the trapped wyverns. Ryuma looks on, a fierce grin on his face as they fight in perfect sync. Nan stands ready, noting he has now defeated 24 of the beasts. A colossal barrier of wind summoned by Nan swirls protectively around the town. But the tide of battle was about to turn in an unexpected way. Ryuma glares up in frustration. The wyverns have grown wary and refuse to descend. He unleashes whips of water, lashing out at the circling beasts. The wyverns skillfully dodge his magical attacks, prolonging the stalemate. Nan knows he cannot use his full power while maintaining the massive barrier. A wyvern's eye turns, its attention suddenly caught by something in the distance. Ryuma sees the wyverns react, their focus shifting beyond the swirling wind. He wonders what could be out there to draw their attention. Nan speculates that it might be the reinforcements sent by Guildmaster Gimmel. Ryuma confirms with his map app that there are indeed allies outside the barrier. His magic is fading. He resolves to drop the barrier and cooperate. He tells Nan to prepare as he is about to release the barrier. With a great whoosh, the massive wall of wind finally dissipates. A large, well-equipped party of adventurers stands ready at the forest's edge. Their leader gives the sharp command to unleash their attack. A powerful magical blast streaks through the air, striking a wyvern. The adventurers curse as their initial volley proves to be ineffective. Ryuma grins, seeing the chaos as the perfect opening for a counterattack. He unleashes a devastating torrent of magic, tearing into a diving wyvern. The blast rips through the beast's body, sending it reeling back. He smiles, declaring one wyvern is down and can no longer fly. He turns his attention to the last massive beast looming before him. Nan's eye widens in alarm, realizing Ryuma has let his guard down. The hero moves in a flash, his blade a silver blur intercepting the attack. Nan's powerful slash cuts clean through the air, protecting his companion. Ryuma stands stunned as the wyvern's black blood splatters behind him. He unleashes his own powerful magic, striking the final wyvern head-on. Their combined assault overwhelms the last of the beasts, ending the threat. The adventurers below erupt in a triumphant cheer, shouting that it's finally over. Nan watches the celebration with a weary yet relieved expression. A quiet stillness falls over the sky above the ravaged town. The view pans down, revealing the utter devastation left in the battle's wake. The streets are a horrific scene of death and destruction. A man cries out, asking if his loved one is all right amidst the rubble. Nan and Ryuma stand in grim silence as a child weeps for her mother. Ryuma knows that though they won, the people who died will not return. He clenches his fist, offering a silent prayer for the fallen and the survivors. He closes his eyes, whispering a heartfelt plea for peace and strength. A miraculous, divine light suddenly radiates from Ryuma's body. The brilliant light begins to spread, illuminating the ruins. The survivors look up in shock, wondering at the source of the holy light. The light intensifies, filling the sky with its brilliant, warm glow. The entire town of Fortlo is bathed in the ethereal radiance. The light touches the fallen, their forms dissolving into shimmering particles. The souls of the dead appear, whole and peaceful, greeted by their weeping children. The spirits smile down, offering a final, gentle farewell to the living. The souls of men, women, and children begin their slow ascent to the heavens. Wanan watches in utter awe as the spirits of the dead return to the sky. The survivors wave a tearful, final goodbye to their departed loved ones. The divine light slowly begins to fade, leaving a profound silence. The massive expenditure of power leaves Ryuma swaying from exhaustion. Nan rushes to his side, catching him before he can fall. The townspeople gather, realizing the young boy is the source of the miracle. This event, the miracle of Fortlo, was how the world learned of the apostle. A final caption states that Ryuma's heartfelt prayer had become a miracle. The next morning, the sun rises over the damaged but quiet town. Ryuma's eyes flutter open as he slowly awakens from a deep sleep. He sits up in an unfamiliar bed, wondering where he is. He vaguely recalls the battle, defeating the wyverns in the town. A calm voice announces that he has finally awakened. Nan and an old man stand by his bed, Nan asking how he feels. Ruma, touching his chest, says he feels fine, even refreshed. The old man kneels, introducing himself as Mayor Rowden and offering his deepest thanks. Ruma urges the mayor to stand and asks about the town's condition. The mayor delivers the grim news of the town's catastrophic losses. Ruma is stunned into silence by the sheer scale of the tragedy. But the mayor continues, thanks to the miracle, they could say a final goodbye. He explains that the survivors are now filled with a mysterious will to live. Ruma thinks that with such spirit, they will be able to persevere. He quietly acknowledges this small comfort with a solemn expression. Ruma asks if he can go outside to see the town for himself. Nan advises him to wait, telling him to rest for the remainder of the day. He explains that word of the miracle has spread, and Ryuma's presence would cause a commotion. Ryuma panics, realizing his identity as an apostle has been exposed to the world. He hangs his head in defeat, agreeing to stay quiet for now. Nan announces that it is time for him to return to the capital. He thanks Ryuma for the honor of fighting with him, hoping to meet again. Ruma reflects on the hero's strength, hoping their paths cross again soon. Back in his room, Ryuma sits alone contemplating the day's events. He remembers the emergency quest and decides to claim his reward. He is shocked by the massive 150,000 God Point reward. Scrolling through the store, his eyes land on a library app. He excitedly hopes it will allow him to read manga and light novels. His hopes are dashed when he sees only books from this world. He slumps in defeat, cursing his cruel fate. A divine message appears suggesting he install the personal space app. He is shocked that there might be a way to read them after all. He finds the app but is aghast at the steep 50,000 point price. He decides to install it anyway, trusting Murphim's recommendation. He is outraged to find it costs another 10,000 points just to activate. Feeling utterly scammed, he grudgingly accepts the charge. With a loud thud, a simple wooden door materializes in his room. He nervously approaches, wondering what lies beyond the mysterious door. Stepping through, he finds himself in the familiar entryway of his family home. His mind races as he realizes what this must mean. He breaks into a frantic dash down the hallway of his memories. He throws open the door to his old bedroom, his heart pounding. Before him stand his shelves, packed with his beloved light novels and manga. The world dissolves into a familiar sight, shelves overflowing with his beloved manga. He recognizes the glass cases, filled with pristine anime Blu-ray box sets. Standing in the impossible space, he realizes with a jolt that this is his room. Murphim explains this is a reward, a perfect copy of his room in a pocket dimension. Opening the fridge, he finds soda, as Murphim explains he can stay for up to 7 days. The god adds that 7 days here is a mere moment outside, so he should relax. Ryuma collapses onto a beanbag, thanking Murphim for creating his ideal life. He happily settles in with a manga, deciding to fully indulge himself this time. For hours, he loses himself in video games on his handheld console. He also catches up on all the anime he missed, watching it on his large TV. He enjoys all the familiar snacks and drinks he left behind in Japan. After 7 blissful days, a fully refreshed Ryuma stretches, ready to return. Now energized, he decides it's time to help with Fort Lowe's reconstruction. He arrives to see the townsfolk already hard at work clearing the extensive rubble. Seeing the orphaned children, he declares that he will build an orphanage for them. He promises to cover all costs from construction to upkeep, so they need not worry. The mayor watches the town's progress, hopeful that recovery is not far off. He and 2 priests approach Ryuma, asking for a moment of his time. Ryuma turns, surprised by the formal visit, but agrees to speak with them. The group finds a quiet place to talk amidst the slowly recovering town. They sit at a simple wooden table, the mood serious and respectful. The priests introduce themselves as Rofel and Azan from the Holy Church. Ryuma listens attentively, though the formal praise makes him a bit uncomfortable. Rofel states the church will offer its full support to the town's recovery efforts. Ryuma is grateful, agreeing that the residents' stability is the highest priority. Rofel then asks for permission to build a new church in the Miracle Town. Ryuma agrees, turning to the mayor, who is overjoyed by the proposal. The mayor explains a church for the apostle would ensure the town's prosperity. With everyone in agreement, the happy group thanks Ryuma for his blessing. A caption indicates that 1 full month has passed since the decision. A beautiful new church now stands completed in the center of the town. Fort Lowe has been reborn, bustling with pilgrims drawn to the new holy site. Ryuma decides the town is safe now and that it's time to return to Fereas. He looks out over the rooftops of the vibrant, rebuilt town. As he leaves, a mother asks him to bless her baby. Another man offers him a basket of fresh vegetables as a token of thanks. He is quickly surrounded by a crowd of adoring, grateful townspeople. They clamor for a handshake or a blessing, overwhelming the young apostle. Apologizing, he is forced to make a hasty escape from the adoring crowd. Upon returning to Fereas, he finds a similar crowd has gathered at his mansion. A maid informs him that people have been waiting outside for him every day. Ruma groans, realizing his normal life is over as long as he stays here. He decides he must go somewhere his face is not yet known. He stands up abruptly, his mind made up. With a determined look, he declares he will go to the capital, San Angeles. He remembers the king's invitation and that Nan is there. It's the perfect chance. He informs his staff, leaving them funds to maintain the mansion in his absence. The butlers and maids bow deeply, wishing their kind master a safe journey. He slips out of the estate gates just before sunrise to avoid being seen. He visits the guild, asking Gimel to handle his affairs while he is away. As he leaves Fereas, he makes a mental note to contact Roma's party later. Hood up, he sets off, his destination now the royal capital. In a different town, a man asks his friends if they've heard the rumors. He shares the news that Apostle Ryoma has left Fereas. Another man laughs, joking that maybe their town will be next for a miracle. The swordswoman Miyabi overhears them, a curious smile on her face. The chapter begins with a hooded Ryoma checking his phone on the road. He muses that he left in such a hurry, he should have borrowed a horse. He then remembers the flight skill he received as a quest reward. Looking up at the open sky, he decides he might as well test it. He wonders if he just needs to visualize himself flying. He takes a small hop and his feet lift from the ground. With a bit more effort, he rises into the air, hovering with a grin. He pushes off, launching himself forward with an excited shout. Soaring high above the mountains, he exclaims how incredible the feeling is. He realizes he can reach the next town in no time at this speed. He becomes a black streak, racing across the sunlit sky. From his high vantage point, he spots a town in the distance. He identifies it as Alga and decides to land and rest for the night. However, the first inn he tries has no vacant rooms. He sits dejectedly on a crate, wondering why this small town is so packed. He has turned away from a second inn, his frustration growing. A small boy with a wagging tail asks if he's looking for a room. Ruma is delighted to see a beastman, a cute boy with fluffy dog ears. The boy explains that all the inns are full because of new travelers. He mentions a nearby holy site, and Ryuma realizes the crowd is his fault. The boy then kindly offers him a room at his family's inn. Ruma gratefully accepts, deciding it's best to use a fake name. He introduces himself as Taru, which the boy finds a bit strange. The boy introduces himself as Nagu and tells Ryuma to follow him. Nagu leads him through the lively common room of the inn. Two adventurers discuss the apostle from Fereas, wondering what he is like. They speak of the rumors. He can cure any illness and saved a town from wyverns. Ryuma overhears them and nervously pulls his hood down, trying to hide his face. Nagu shows him to a simple room with a wooden bed. The boy tells him to call if he needs anything. Alone, Ryuma notes the room's musty smell and decides to use purification magic. He sits on the bed, casting a small orb of light to freshen the room. He pulls out his phone to check for daily quests he can complete. A new dangerous-sounding quest to destroy an orc nest catches his attention. He is shocked to see the reward includes 1,000 kilograms of ogre meat. He imagines a delicious steak, wondering if the meat is any good. His decision is made. He'll go hunt for meat and gain some levels. The next day, he flies over a craggy, imposing mountain range. Checking his map, he confirms the orc nest is in this area. He spots a massive encampment below, nestled deep within the forest. He looks down, stunned by the sheer number of creatures. A massive horde of muscular, pig-like orcs mills about their crude village. The orcs look up, noticing the small figure hovering in the sky. Ruma's expression turns grim. He knows this horde is a disaster waiting to happen. Ruma uses his phone, converting his divine god points into more magical energy. Now brimming with power, he stands resolute and prepares to begin his assault. He starts to cast his spell, gathering globules of water from the air. He commands the water to take the shape of a storm of sharp swords. The magical blades rain down from the sky upon the unsuspecting orc camp. The ground erupts in a chaotic spray as the volley of swords finds its mark. The powerful magical assault tears through the Orcish front lines with ease. He coolly assesses his foes, noting that the individual orcs are quite weak. He believes this overwhelming magical barrage will be enough to wipe out the entire horde. His eyes narrow as he notices something unexpected through the dust of the attack. The larger armored orc generals have survived his initial magical barrage. Realizing his aerial assault is insufficient, he prepares to descend to the battlefield. He plans to land and use his earth magic to deal with the stronger orcs. An orc general charges with surprising speed, catching him completely off guard. He lets out a small gasp, surprised by the creature's unexpected ferocity. The massive club swings through the air with immense, terrifying force. He dodges the attack just in time, the wind from the blow whipping past him. Another orc closes in, forcing him to remain on the defensive. He concludes that fighting on the ground against these brutes is far too dangerous. The true leader of the horde, a massive orc king, finally emerges. He decides he must use fire magic, despite the danger to the surrounding forest. A roaring vortex of flame erupts from his hands, engulfing the orc leaders. He sees his fire is effective and decides to press his overwhelming assault. The flames intensify as he pours more of his immense magic into the spell. The orc king is caught in the very heart of the raging inferno. He grits his teeth, determined to reduce his enemies to nothing but ash. With a final push of power, he vows to burn them all to cinders. The entire battlefield is consumed by a sea of raging, destructive fire. The flames die down, leaving behind a field of smoking, blackened earth. He lands, panting from the exertion, and surveys the devastation, wondering if it's over. His eyes widen slightly as he notices the Orc King's corpse is still standing. He prepares to purify the land, assuming the immediate danger has passed. He realizes with a start that the Orc King somehow died on its feet. Suddenly, the charred corpse lurches, its arm beginning to move in a final reflex. As if from beyond the grave, the dead Orc King swings its massive club. Ruma is caught completely off guard, the blow connecting with full force. A scream of pure, unadulterated agony is torn from his lips. He collapses, his mind reeling from the unexpected and devastating attack. He realizes in horror that the dead creature attacked him with its last strength. As he loses consciousness, a brilliant golden light erupts from his body. His innate sacred magic washes over the battlefield, purifying the corrupted land. He slowly comes to, groggy and disoriented from the ordeal. He grabs his arm in a panic, expecting to find it completely shattered. To his astonishment, his arm is perfectly healed, without a single scar. A profound sense of relief washes over him as he sits in the quiet clearing. He realizes his victory over the wyverns had made him dangerously overconfident. He stands in the now consecrated clearing, motes of holy light floating around him. He checks his phone and confirms that the orc subjugation quest is now complete. After the near-death experience, he has completely lost his appetite for the reward meat. He notes his level has risen to 71, and his body feels much lighter. He resolves to look on the bright side and learn from his harsh lesson. With the battle finally over, he decides it's time to return to Alga. The familiar timber frame buildings of the town of Alga come into view. He walks through the streets, planning to buy new clothes and find a bath. As he muses to himself, a familiar voice suddenly calls out his real name. He turns, a look of surprised recognition dawning on his face. It's his friends Roma, Ruin, and Fereas, looking just as surprised to see him. He asks why they are here, and Roma explains they're on an escort quest. Ruin excitedly tells him about the chaos his sudden departure caused back in Fereas. Ryuma panics, quickly shushing him to protect his secret identity. He explains he's using the alias Taru until things calm down. He had Guildmaster Gimel announce his departure to disperse the adoring crowds. Roma scratches his chin, understanding the difficult situation Ryuma was in. Fereas notices his ragged clothes and asks what could have happened to him. He vaguely explains that he had a rather difficult run-in at an orc nest. His friends react with horrified sympathy at the thought of the ordeal. He tells them his plan is to continue his journey to the capital, San Angeles. Roma eagerly asks if he and the others can join him on his journey. He explains their own quest is finished, leaving them free to travel. Ruin, though surprised by the sudden plan, is excited by the idea. Fereas, ever practical, points out the financial cost of such a long trip. Ruma watches his friends debate, a thoughtful expression on his face. He smiles, thinking that traveling with them would certainly be fun and lively. He offers to cover all their travel expenses, much to their astonishment. He wants their journey to be an enjoyable one, and warmly welcomes them along. His friends let out a resounding cheer, excited for their new adventure together. Roma suggests they get new gear from a merchant acquaintance of his. Night falls, the moon hanging high over the rooftops of the inn. In their shared room, Ruma lies in bed, scrolling on his divine phone. He decides to install some new apps to make their journey more convenient. He finds a rest stop app that can create a safe pocket dimension. He also decides it's time to expand his magical arsenal with new skills. He chooses powerful ice storm and special attribute lightning magic. Satisfied with his powerful new abilities, he decides to save his remaining points. With all his preparations made, he looks forward to their journey together. The next morning, the sun rises over the rooftops of the town. The newly formed party sets off, aiming for the next town, Murag. Their boots crunch on the dirt path as they begin their journey as a group. As they walk through the forest, a monstrous shape bursts from the trees. A horde of goblins appears, led by a terrifyingly large giant mantis. Roma shouts a warning, identifying the dangerous monsters before them. Ruma steps forward, telling his friends that he will handle this fight. He is eager to test out the new magic he just acquired. He unleashes his ice storm magic, freezing the charging goblins solid in their tracks. Next, he turns his attention to the massive insectoid creature leading the horde. He unleashes a torrent of crackling electricity from his outstretched hand. The flash and roar are so intense his friends are forced to cover their ears. The giant mantis is completely vaporized by the overwhelming magical power. A plume of smoke rises where the monster once stood, leaving an eerie silence. Roma and Ruin stare in awe at the incredible display of destructive power. Firms rushes towards Ryuma, asking about the magic he just used. He explains that he used two types, ice storm and lightning magic. Firmes is amazed, saying she has never even heard of lightning magic. Ruma's friends watch the destruction, noting how flashy his powers are. As evening falls, they decide it is time to stop for the day. Roma suggests they find a spot to camp and build a fire. Ruma tells him there is no need, as he has a safer way. His companions look on, completely baffled by his strange declaration. A wooden door materializes in the clearing, opening into a new space. Roma is astounded, asking if this incredible room is another of his abilities. Firmes peeks into an adjacent room, delighted to find a toilet and a bath. Ruma assures a curious Ruin that the space is safe from all threats. He suggests that Firmes would probably be more comfortable in a private room. She gratefully accepts his offer and heads for the separate door he indicates. Ruma decides to celebrate the start of their journey together with a toast. The four friends raise their glasses, happily cheering to their new adventure. Ruin takes his first sip, his eyes widening in complete surprise. He exclaims that the drink Ruma prepared is unbelievably sweet and delicious. Ruma explains that it is orange juice, a beverage made from fruit. He reveals it came from his personal space, along with other modern treasures. Firmes, loving the taste, eagerly asks if there is any more to drink. He assures them he has plenty, including coffee and something called cola. They all enjoy the new flavors, finding the cola tingly and the coffee rich. Later, Firmes soaks in the hot bath with a deep, contented sigh. She thinks about what a luxury this is, thanking Ryuma for the treat. She reflects that she usually only has a wet towel to clean herself. Feeling a bit overheated, she decides it is finally time to get out. She emerges from the bathroom, feeling completely refreshed and relaxed. Her skin glowing, she shyly wishes the boys good night and heads for her room. Roma and Ruin are left completely flustered by her appearance in sleepwear. She quickly retreats, leaving the two boys blushing in the main room. Roma teasingly asks Ruin what he plans to do when he gets in the bath. They wonder if Ryuma is affected at all, deciding demigods are different. Ruin emerges refreshed, and Roma says he will take the last turn. Ryuma relaxes in the warm water, letting the day's exhaustion fade. He returns to the main room to find his friends already fast asleep. He watches them for a moment, a small, content smile on his face. He quietly gets into his own bed, ending their first day on the road. A week later, Firmus suggests they take a break on their way to Murag. Ryuma agrees, offering to share some of his special juice with everyone. The four adventurers relax by the roadside, enjoying their refreshing drinks. Suddenly, the sound of an approaching carriage rumbles down the road. A large covered wagon grinds to a halt right beside the group. The driver asks what they are doing in an area known for monsters. A woman's voice calls from inside, asking if they have reached Murag. She emerges, telling them with an annoyed look not to be playing around. In a swift, fluid motion, she dismounts from the carriage. Before Roma can react, she snatches the cup from his hand. She stares at the contents, demanding to know why they have carbonated cola. A gust of wind blows as her sharp gaze sweeps over the stunned group. Her eyes finally lock onto Ryuma, the only possible source of the drink. She points a finger directly at him, accusing him of being Japanese. Ryuma freezes, his cup slipping from his hand, his secret exposed. The shocking accusation hangs in the air between them. The woman's intense expression softens into a slight, knowing smile. She tells him not to be wary, revealing that she is also a reincarnator. She introduces herself as Taoluke, formerly Miyabi Ryusuke from Japan. Ryuma nervously gives his alias Taru, which she finds amusing. She dismisses the formalities, asking if she can have some of his cola. He flusteredly agrees and reaches into his magical item bag. Taluk leans in, whispering that she will keep his apostle status a secret. She calls to her attendant, instructing him to treat the group as guests. The attendant, Welwyn, notes that it is rare for her to be so accommodating. He formally introduces himself as the procurement manager for Welwyn Trading. Welwyn then politely asks if he might also have a taste of the drink. Taluk encourages him to just chug the whole glass at once. He tilts his head back and takes a large gulp of the strange liquid. The sudden, intense carbonation hits him, and he sputters in shock. Ruma advises him that it's a stimulating drink and to sip it slowly. Welwyn takes another, more careful taste, noting its incredible sweetness. He marvels at the bubbly sensation, deducing it must contain precious sugar. He asks Ryuma if he is perhaps a noble, given such a luxury item. Miyabi correctly guesses that he was cast out and is now on a journey. Ryuma begins to invite them to travel with his party to the capital. His sentence is cut short as a monster's appearance startles everyone. A vicious, multi-eyed wolf-like creature leaps from the nearby woods. It charges towards the group with terrifying speed and ferocity. Before anyone can move, Taluk's sword flashes in a single silver arc. The monster is decapitated instantly, its body collapsing to the ground. Ryuma and his friends stare in shock, wondering when she even moved. He is amazed, realizing she attacked without making a single sound. Welwyn simply smiles, commenting on her magnificent display of skill. Taluk sheathes her sword, stating her title, "The Swift, is well earned." She decides to treat them in town as thanks for the cola. They soon arrive in the bustling, picturesque town of Murag. Taluke leads them to an inn so grand it leaves them all speechless. Roma is overwhelmed by the luxury, stammering his thanks for the escort. Ruma gratefully accepts the lodging, noting that she has paid for it all. He tells his friends that next time, they should use his rest stop ability. Ruma decides that Roma and Ruin will share a room for the night. The next morning, a sharp knock sounds on Ryuma's door. A maid informs him that visitors are waiting to see him. He is led through the inn's opulent and richly decorated halls. In a grand parlor, he finds Taluki and Welwyn waiting for him. They escort him to the impressive headquarters of the Welwyn Trading Company. A portly man greets him warmly, introducing himself as President Ois. Ois gets straight to business, proposing a deal for his rare beverage. Ruma's expression darkens as he understands the true reason for their hospitality. He feels a familiar wave of irritation, hating to be used in this way. Steeling himself, he knows he has no choice but to see this through. In a lavish parlor, the merchant Wa asks to taste Ryuma's unique beverage. Ryuma silently places a glass of the dark, fizzing liquid on the table. Wak eagerly raises the glass, recognizing it as the legendary cola. He declares that he will not hold back and takes a large gulp. His eyes fly open in shock as the strange carbonation hits his tongue. He marvels at the popping sensation and its incredible sweet flavor. He immediately makes an aggressive offer to buy the cola for his company. Ryuma politely refuses, saying he only has a little to share with friends. He thinks to himself that he actually has a limitless supply but dislikes commerce. Oik's smile falters for a moment as he murmurs his disappointment. He quickly counters, offering an even higher price for just a few cans. Ryuma apologizes again, firmly stating that the drink is not for sale. Arx says it's a shame, but secretly clenches his fist in frustration. He feigns good cheer, saying it was enough just to have met Ryuma. Ryuma waves goodbye as he is seen off by the seemingly friendly merchant. The moment Ryuma is gone, Wick's expression turns to a cold, hard glare. Later that night, the grand inn where the party is staying is quiet. Ryuma is suddenly jolted from his sleep by a strange noise in the room. He sits up in bed, his eyes scanning the darkness, wondering what he heard. A gloved hand suddenly clamps over his mouth, silencing him in an instant. Miyabi appears behind him, whispering for him to be quiet and calm down. He pulls her hand away, demanding to know what she's doing here so late. She urgently explains that Week has sent assassins to attack him for the cola. Ryuma's eyes widen in shock at the sudden, deadly turn of events. Miyabi confesses her debt to Oik's master, but refuses to let an apostle be harmed. She explains she has defied her master to warn Ryuma and help him escape. Ryuma's expression hardens as he confirms he understands the grave situation. He checks his phone and the map app confirms danger with multiple hostile markers. He murmurs that these must be the assassins as Miyabi stares at the phone. She points, her voice filled with disbelief, identifying the device as a smartphone. Ryuma says they'll talk later and rushes to wake his sleeping friend, Ruin. A groggy Ruin asks what's wrong, confused by Ryuma's frantic state. Ryuma yells that they have to get out of the inn immediately. Jolted by the urgency, Ruin scrambles out of bed without another word. As they prepare to flee, Ryuma asks Miyabi what she plans to do now. He is surprised when she asks if she can accompany him for a while. She admits she wants to hear about his smartphone, and other things from Japan. She then bows deeply, desperately begging him and promising to do anything in return. Ryuma realizes just how deeply she longs for a connection to their past lives. The door suddenly bursts open as Ryuma rushes in, asking if Teru is all right. Ryuma quickly explains that Wei's assassins are coming and they must flee. The group races out of the inn's grand entrance into the night. They sprint through the corridors trying to find a way out of the building. A smirking assassin casually greets them as they turn a corner. They find themselves completely surrounded in the street by a host of armed men. The leader of the assassins smirks, asking what they are doing up so late. The title page shows a small party surrounded, ready for a desperate fight. The leader, Lugard, addresses Miyabi by name, telling her not to interfere. Miyabi glares back, recognizing him and spitting out his name. Lugard reminds her of their debt to the master who saved them from the streets. Miyabi warns him that their opponent is too dangerous and pleads for him to retreat. A tense standoff crackles in the air between the two former comrades. Lugard ignores her warning and, following his orders, commands his men to attack. Miyabi moves in a flash, her sword a blur as she deflects multiple strikes. With incredible speed, she gracefully cuts down several of the assassins. Ruin joins the fight, his own blade clashing with an attacker's. Ryuma parries a blow, knowing he can't risk using his powerful magic here. His friends fight valiantly, but are slowly being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Ryuma's expression darkens. He has had enough of this pointless violence. He unleashes a brilliant, concussive wave of pure magical energy. The assassins are thrown back, stunned and unable to move from the shock. Lugard stares in horror, realizing Ryuma's power is beyond comprehension. Surrounded by crackling energy, Ryuma reveals he is no ordinary nobleman. He tells his friends to get out of the alley while he holds the thugs back. An assassin makes a final, desperate lunge for a terrified Ruin. Ryuma's eyes flash with cold fury as he tells them, "That's enough." He unleashes a second, more powerful wave of paralyzing magic. Tendrils of crackling energy envelop the assassins, freezing them in place. With the threat completely neutralized, he turns to his friends and says, "Let's go." Miyabi can only stare after them, completely speechless at the display of power. She calls out, wondering about the incredible light and overwhelming magic she saw. The group successfully escapes the town, making their way into the wilderness. Once they are safely hidden, Ryuma lets out a long, weary sigh. He turns and bows deeply, apologizing profusely to his companions. He insists it's his fault they were dragged into this dangerous mess. Roma, Ruin, and Fereas immediately protest, saying he did nothing wrong. Miyabi steps forward, her head bowed, insisting that she is the one to blame. Ryuma gently tells her to raise her head, dismissing her apology. He sincerely thanks her for warning them and trying to protect his friends. Miyabi looks up, her expression a mixture of relief and lingering guilt. In the safety of the forest, Ryuma summons the door to his rest stop. Inside the pocket dimension, he gathers the party to discuss their next steps. He announces his intention to continue their journey to the capital, San Angeles. He then smiles, formally inviting Miyabi to travel with them as a companion. Roma, Fereas, and Ruin cheer, enthusiastically welcoming her to their party. Ryuma tells everyone to get some rest, assuring them they are safe here. The next morning begins peacefully with the sound of coffee being prepared. Ryuma greets a sleepy Miyabi, offering her a fresh cup of the hot drink. She rubs her eyes, saying that she's awake now and ready to start the day. He asks if she would like some coffee, and she readily accepts his offer. She peers at the coffee pot, wondering how he can produce so many earthly items. He explains he doesn't create them, but simply brings them from another place. He adds that he has no intention of selling them to become a billionaire. He then gently asks her about her own experience being reincarnated in this world. She recounts the tragic story of dying in an accident with her lover in Japan. She was reborn here as an orphan, surviving in the slums with her sword skills. She looks away wistfully, admitting that she would return to Earth if she could. Ryuma listens to her painful story with a quiet, sympathetic expression. Miyabi finishes her tale, the weight of 30 years in this world in her eyes. She then turns to him, a small smile returning, and asks to hear his story. Ryuma begins to explain his past, his voice trailing off as he thinks. Miyabi's face lights up with sheer delight, excited to find another manga fan. She fondly recalls a favorite series she used to buy without fail. He listens intently as she wishes she could somehow read it again. A clever smile crosses Ryuma's face as he reveals a secret. Miyabi can only stare back, her mind completely blank with disbelief. From thin air, he materializes the entire manga series for her. Overcome with joy, she grabs a volume, realizing she can read it again. Tears of happiness begin to well in her eyes as she holds the book. Ryuma watches her with a gentle smile as she happily sniffles. He decides to join her, picking up one of the volumes to read. The next morning, Roma and Ruin find the two of them reading. Ruin explains what manga is, and Roma is impressed by the art. Fermes enters the room, curious about what has everyone so captivated. Soon, the entire party is sitting together, completely engrossed in reading. The day passes peacefully as everyone gets lost in the stories. Ruma finally snaps them out of it, declaring it's time to leave. Resuming their travels, he notes the long road still ahead of them. They journey for several days through the vast, untamed wilderness. As night falls, they finally draw near to the royal capital. A lone carriage carries them across a stone bridge into the city. The five adventurers stand together, having finally reached their destination. The breathtaking, magnificent capital city of San Angeles spreads before them. Roma marvels at the crowds as they take in the city's scale. He suggests their first order of business is to find an inn. Ruma asks if they can first make a stop at the Adventurers Guild. He reminds them his main reason for coming was his royal audience. Ruin agrees, saying they can use the time to look for quests. Roma is amazed he's meeting the king, but Ryuma is just nervous. The following day dawns bright and clear over the capital's rooftops. To kill time before his meeting, Ryuma decides to explore the city. He wanders down a grand staircase, heading into another district. His walk takes him to the more dilapidated parts of the capital. He finds himself in a narrow, rundown alleyway, far from the glitz. The area is filled with weary-looking beastmen in ragged clothing. He sees two young women huddled together, their expressions downtrodden. He notices the area is populated by many vagrant beastmen. A large horned man shoots him a hostile, menacing glare. Sensing the palpable danger, he wisely decides to leave quickly. He makes his way back to a more lively market street. He finds himself in a district filled with shops catering to adventurers. As he walks, a peculiar shop sign suddenly catches his eye. It is the sign for the In-Style Magic Tool Shop. He steps inside, deciding to look for a new staff or wand. A sudden voice from the shadows makes him jump in surprise. The shopkeeper, a cackling old woman, greets him with a sinister grin. He thinks she looks like a witch, and she immediately denies it. Flustered, he asks if she can read his mind, but she laughs it off. Finding her deeply unsettling, he listens as she asks what he wants. He explains that he is a mage looking for a proper focus. She offers him a simple, unadorned wand to try first. She tells him a shorter, more agile wand would suit a young man. He holds the wand, but feels that it is not the right fit. Seeing his dissatisfaction, she presents him with a much grander staff. She explains it is made from a sacred tree with holy powers. The moment he touches it, the staff erupts in a brilliant divine light. The shopkeeper is amazed, saying he is the first to cause this reaction. She remarks that his divine aura makes him seem like a god himself. He quickly gives the staff back, saying it is far too conspicuous. Instead, he asks if she has a wand with a water affinity. She returns from the back room holding a new ornate wand. She explains it is crafted from the materials of a sea dragon leviathan. She places the powerful artifact directly into his waiting hand. A powerful, resonant energy surges through him as he holds it. The shopkeeper notes that the unruly wand seems to have chosen him. When she asks if he will buy it, he agrees without hesitation. He is stunned when she names the astronomical price of 400,000 Venas. He realizes the cost is immense, but he has already made up his mind. He pays the staggering price with his vast fortune, not batting an eye. As he leaves, the cackling shopkeeper invites him to visit again. The ornate wand immediately draws the stares of everyone on the street. Realizing it is too flashy, he quickly stores it in his item bag. Later that day, he finds himself at the magnificent royal palace. An attendant informs him that the chamber for his audience is ready. Dressed in formal attire, he steels himself for the meeting with the king. He walks the long, intimidating path toward the throne. The king of Fereas welcomes him warmly and introduces himself. The king tells him to raise his head, putting him at ease. Ryuma expresses his sincere hope for a good relationship between them. The king is delighted and extends an open invitation to the palace. Ryuma graciously accepts the king's incredibly kind offer. The king then invites him to a dinner party with the royal family. The evening is spent in pleasant company at the royal dinner table. Night falls over the grand castle as the successful dinner concludes. The full moon shines brightly in the clear night sky. Ryuma formally thanks the royal family for their wonderful hospitality. Relieved the audience is over, he is offered a ride to his mansion. He remembers the mansion he was gifted and asks to be taken there. The royal carriage begins to roll through the capital's cobblestone streets. The attendant announces that they have finally arrived at their destination. Stepping out of the carriage, Ryuma is rendered utterly speechless. He discovers his mansion is actually the magnificent Marsat Palace. He is greeted by Sangatori, the impeccably dressed head butler. He is informed that a full staff is already stationed at the palace. The staff is at his beck and call for anything he might require. Looking at the vast empty halls, he feels it is too much for him alone. Standing on the grand staircase, a brilliant idea suddenly strikes him. He approaches the head butler with a special request. He begins to explain his surprising plan to the attentive butler. His friends arrive, wondering why he has brought them to this palace. Ryuma casually reveals that the magnificent palace before them is his, a gift from the king. His friends, Roma, Fereas, and Ruin, are utterly speechless, their minds unable to process the sheer scale of the estate. Ryuma watches their shocked expressions with a delighted grin, happy that his surprise was a success. He explains that he wanted to surprise them and has already arranged for a meal to welcome them. He had asked the head butler, Sangatore, to prepare a grand welcome for all his friends. Inside, the five of them raise their glasses in a toast over a long, lavishly decorated dining table. Later, Fereas luxuriates in a massive bathtub, sighing contentedly at how wonderfully spacious it is. Ryuma plays a game of chess against a pensive Miyabi, a confident smile on his face. They all relax in a comfortable lounge, enjoying delicate pastries and cups of hot tea. Ryuma offers to have rooms prepared for them, suggesting they could even live there if they wished. Ruin and Roma find the idea too intimidating, while Miyabi prefers a more modest room. Fereas, however, is absolutely thrilled, declaring that living in such a palace would be a dream come true. The boys laugh at her enthusiasm, telling her that just coming to visit is more than enough. Fereas blushes, feeling a bit overwhelmed, but Ryuma just smiles and tells her to visit again. The next morning, his friends say their goodbyes, ready to return to their adventuring lives. Roma's heartfelt thanks echo as he and the others depart from the Grand Palace. Ryuma invites them to come back soon, admitting the palace is too large for just one person. Fereas beams, enthusiastically promising that, of course, she will definitely be back to visit again. After his friends leave, Ryuma finds Miyabi relaxing on an elegant sofa, reading a manga. He asks if she is still here, and she casually replies that she has her own money. She sits up with a spark in her eye, eagerly asking if he has any other manga. Smiling warmly, Ryuma holds up his glowing phone and agrees to bring her more to read. He finds himself getting lost in the stories alongside her, enjoying a quiet afternoon of reading. He places another full set of manga volumes on the table for her to enjoy. Later, he notices Miyabi putting on her armor and asks if she is heading out somewhere. She explains that her body's getting stiff and she's going to the guild to find a quest. Ryuma suggests they tackle a dungeon together, an idea that Miyabi finds very appealing. He puts on his cloak, determined to conquer a dungeon and avenge his previous failed attempt. Checking his phone, he decides it's time to complete some god quests and earn more points. They decide to depart, agreeing that their first stop should be the guild to gather information. They walk through the lively cobblestone streets of the capital city, St. Angeles. The guildmaster, Bigard, gives Ryuma a hearty welcome, thanking him for his recent assistance. Seated comfortably in his office, Bigard asks what business brings them to the guild today. Ryuma requests information to conquer local dungeons, and Bigard readily agrees to help. Bigard holds up 4 fingers, explaining there are 4 major dungeons in the immediate area. The first is the Raftia Pasture, a grassland full of edible monsters, nicknamed the Meat Dungeon. The second is the Fereas Salt Lake, home to fierce fish monsters and a source of salt. The third is the Tower of the Far Sage, where magic-using monsters drop grimoires and tools. His tone becomes grim as he introduces the 4th dungeon, the former Castile Empire. He explains that all the monsters there are undead, requiring holy magic to be truly defeated. Ryuma visibly shudders, deeply unsettled by the thought of facing an army of the undead. Bigard expresses his hope that Ryuma, as an apostle, might one day conquer the cursed place. Ryuma thinks to himself that taking on a horde of undead is far too much to ask. Suddenly, his phone chimes. It's a rare and unexpected message from the god Murphim. Murphim cheerfully tells him the Castile dungeon has lots of treasure and he should go. Ryuma groans in despair, realizing that with a divine order, he has no choice but to go. He tells Bigard that for now, he'll warm up with one of the other dungeons first. They travel through a sun-dappled forest on their way to their first destination. Soon they spot the familiar, towering white pillar that marks the dungeon's entrance. Miyabi identifies the pillar as the entrance and exit to the Raftia Pasture dungeon. As they get closer, Ryuma notices a delicious, savory aroma wafting towards them on the breeze. They discover a group of adventurers already cooking freshly hunted monster meat over a campfire. Miyabi astutely notes that the adventurers are enjoying meat they quickly hunted inside the dungeon. Ryuma shivers with anticipation, his own appetite suddenly piqued by the mouth-watering sight. He excitedly proposes they have their own barbecue party after their hunt is over. The two adventurers stand together at the base of the enormous, otherworldly entrance pillar. Miyabi declares that it's time to go, and Ryuma quietly agrees with a determined nod. Ryuma reaches out, placing his hand on the pillar's cool, smooth surface to enter. They emerge into a vast grassland, a breathtaking landscape stretching out before them. Ryuma notes the endless grassland, while Miyabi spots a single huge tree in the distance. Ryuma suggests they use the massive tree as a landmark to guide their way forward. The two of them begin their journey, walking through the tall grass of the dungeon. A sudden rumbling sound startles Ryuma, who asks what could be making the noise. He identifies a charging herd of monstrous boars, the Genoiberco, appearing so soon. Ryuma grits his teeth, his hand on his weapon, ready for a fight to start so quickly. He eagerly brandishes his newly purchased Leviathan wand, ready to unleash its power. A massive wave of water magic erupts from the wand, sending the entire herd tumbling away. Ryuma stands there, wand in hand, slightly confused by the overwhelming outcome of his spell. Miyabi comments on the immense magical pressure she felt from the wand, flustering Ryuma. She sternly reminds him that their goal is to hunt for meat, not to obliterate everything. Ryuma cries out in comical despair, having desperately wanted to test his new toy's full power. As they continue on, a massive shadow suddenly falls over them from above. Miyabi looks up, shouting a warning that another monster has arrived on the scene. She stares up, her sword ready, assessing the new, much larger threat that is approaching. Miyabi admits the new foe is too much for her, but Ryuma confidently tells her to leave it to him. A hulking minotaur appears, and Ryuma shouts in alarm at its truly enormous size. He unleashes a volley of magical projectiles that slam into the charging beast with great force. Miyabi watches in approval as the massive monster is staggered by Ryuma's powerful attack. Upon defeat, the monsters conveniently drop perfectly prepared cuts of sparkling meat. The spoils of their hunt are various large, high-quality cuts of premium monster meat. Miyabi declares the meat is all top grade, and Ryuma agrees they should hunt for more. They encounter more of the ferocious, tusked Genoiberco boars during their ongoing hunt. The two adventurers fight in perfect sync, cutting a swath through the monster herd. Their next opponents are a flock of surprisingly large and aggressive, chicken-like monsters. They make quick work of the birds and other beasts with a flurry of coordinated attacks. Finally, they find themselves facing a pair of enormous, intimidating bears. Ryuma asks if bear meat is tasty, and Miyabi assures him that it's actually quite good. They successfully gather a wide variety of sparkling, high-quality meats for their future feast. As the day comes to an end, the sun begins to set over the vast plains. They make camp for the night, pitching a comfortable tent beneath a beautiful, starry sky. Thick cuts of monster meat and fresh vegetables sizzle appetizingly on a barbecue grill. Miyabi savors a bite, exclaiming how delicious the high-quality meat and special sauce are. She raises her glass, identifying the sake as a first-class product from their shared home, Earth. She notes the vegetables are also amazing, and Ryuma agrees that they are quite special. He explains that the vegetables were specially grown by fairies in his smartphone app. As the food sizzles, Ryuma continues to cook, while Miyabi happily enjoys her meal. Miyabi leans back, praising Ryuma's amazing power that makes everything so easy and safe. Tipsy from the sake, she leans close and tells a flustered Ryuma she's never leaving his side. He tells the dozing Miyabi she'll catch a cold, but she drunkenly waves him off. With a sigh, he helps the sleepy Miyabi back to the tent for the night. As the night grows late, Ryuma gently helps a sleepy Miyabi into the tent. He sits alone by the crackling campfire, enjoying the quiet of the dungeon's night sky. After a full week of exploring, they finally arrive at their destination. Ryuma and Miyabi look up in sheer awe at the impossibly colossal tree. Its ancient gnarled roots are thicker than any building they have ever seen. Miyabi remarks that despite its importance, nothing seems to be happening here. Ryuma's phone chimes, displaying a new quest to defeat the boss, Igmog. A deep rumble shakes the ground as the massive roots of the tree begin to stir. He explains the quest, and Miyabi finds the idea of searching inside the tree impossible. A sudden, violent tremor shakes the ground, catching them both completely by surprise. A monstrous serpent erupts from the tree. Ryuma declares the boss battle has begun. He identifies the colossal serpent, Igmog, as the dungeon's fearsome boss. The beast towers over the two adventurers, its sheer size utterly terrifying. It lunges with blinding speed, its fanged maw gaping wide to attack. Miyabi grunts in frustration, bracing herself to meet the powerful assault head-on. The serpent's head slams down as Ryuma flies up and Miyabi dodges. Miyabi leaps away from the impact, her sword at the ready for a counterattack. Her blade strikes true but bounces off, and she curses the creature's tough hide. Ryuma flies above the beast, shouting to draw its attention away from Miyabi. He raises a hand, gathering a swirling vortex of water for a magic spell. He unleashes a powerful volley of high-pressure water projectiles at the serpent. The magical bullets strike its head but seem to have very little effect. He curses that his attack isn't working, while Miyabi asks if he can fly. Realizing he needs more power, Ryuma decides to use his new weapon. He proudly brandishes his new artifact, declaring it to be the Leviathan's wand. The wand glows with immense power as he channels his magic through it. He unleashes his maximal water magic, a colossal torrent of swirling energy. The serpent's massive, unblinking eye focuses on the incoming magical assault. Igmog opens its mouth, gathering a blinding ball of pure, destructive energy. It fires a devastating energy beam, tearing through Ryuma's water spell. Ryuma's eye widens in panic, realizing the beam is incredibly powerful. The sheer force of the blast sends him tumbling helplessly through the air. He struggles to right himself mid-fall, his cloak torn by the shockwave. As the serpent prepares to fire again, Miyabi seizes her opportunity to attack. She leaps high into the air, her sword glowing with concentrated power. Ryuma is still reeling, realizing he's too busy evading to attack effectively. He grits his teeth in frustration, unable to land a single solid blow. Miyabi yells that she has created an opening for him, striking the beast. Seeing his chance, Ryuma calls out his partner's name in gratitude. Igmog looks around, momentarily disoriented by Miyabi's powerful blow. Ryuma declares that thanks to her distraction, he can finally launch his attack. He gathers the water from his previous spell, reshaping it into a massive spear. The spear of water slams into Igmog with a tremendous, explosive force. The serpent roars in fury, its multiple heads snapping at the magical weapon. Ryuma realizes his powerful attack is still not having much of an effect. A brilliant flash of inspiration strikes him as he decides on a new tactic. He knows he must change the properties of his magic to finally do damage. He decides to freeze his water spear, using his powerful ice storm magic. The serpent's head turns, its slitted eyes locking onto the new, frozen threat. Ryuma shouts that this is his chance, focusing all his power on the attack. The massive ice spear impales the serpent's head, shattering it completely. He celebrates his successful hit, planning to launch another one immediately. The serpent looks up, confused by the attack, its body still moving. Wounded, the serpent turns and sinks its massive fangs into the great tree. It bites down hard, drawing sustenance from the ancient wood of its home. Ryuma shouts in alarm, wondering what the creature could possibly be doing. A sickly green energy flows from the tree directly into the serpent's body. The grievous wound on its neck begins to bubble and steam ominously. The flesh knits itself back together, the head regenerating at an alarming rate. Miyabi cries out in shock, realizing the serpent's wound has completely healed. She understands it absorbed the tree's life force to recover from the damage. The fully healed Igmog turns its attention back to the two adventurers. Miyabi asks Ryuma what to do, as he notes they are in an endless loop. Ryuma concludes they must defeat it at once, without giving it time to heal. He tells Miyabi he has a plan and asks for her full cooperation. Miyabi agrees with a confident grin, ready to try his new, risky strategy. The serpent waits patiently, coiled around the tree, ready for their next move. Ryuma flies in close, his expression determined, drawing the beast's full attention. He weaves between the serpent's multiple heads, a difficult but necessary distraction. He dodges a snapping jaw, his body twisting deftly in midair. He tucks and rolls under another attack, narrowly avoiding the beast's fangs. One of the serpent's heads snaps at him, its vicious fangs bared. The creature's long, serpentine neck twists to follow his every movement. Its coiled body tenses, preparing to strike at the elusive flying target. The serpent watches him intently, its multiple eyes tracking his every move. Its slitted pupils narrow, focusing on its frustratingly agile opponent. As one head lunges, Ryuma prepares his counterattack with ice storm magic. He unleashes a powerful blast of frigid energy, freezing the head solid. The ice completely encases the serpent's head in a jagged prison of crystal. He flies around the frozen head, his attack having been perfectly executed. He shouts for Miyabi, telling her that he is counting on her now. Miyabi charges forward, her sword crackling with lightning, ready to deliver the blow. She leaps onto the frozen head, her electrified blade held high for the strike. With a powerful downward slash, she shatters the frozen head completely. The force of the impact sends a shower of ice shards flying everywhere. The serpent's neck is left a mangled, bleeding stump where its head once was. Ryuma asks if they defeated it, but Miyabi warns him not to be careless. The serpent's massive, headless body begins to go limp, its life fading. The corpse dissolves into shimmering particles of pure, white light. In its place, a magnificent, jewel-encrusted treasure chest materializes. Ryuma and Miyabi stare at their prize, their faces lit with pure excitement. They give each other a triumphant fist bump, shouting their victory aloud. They reflect that they conquered the pasture, a feat impossible for normal adventurers. Miyabi calls his plan insane, but Ryuma explains it was their best shot. He suggests a new combo, but Miyabi notes her sword isn't a good conductor. He offers to imbue her sword with lightning and replenish her magic with his own. Miyabi admits she was terrified, but Ryuma says he had complete faith in her skill. They examine the rare items in the chest, planning to get them appraised later. Miyabi holds the new sword, excited about the incredible value it must have. Ryuma stores the items away as Miyabi marvels at his absurdly powerful phone. Exhausted from their battle, Miyabi stretches as Ryuma suggests they use his rest stop. Inside his pocket dimension, the room is now elegantly furnished with new additions. Having changed into casual clothes, they relax, with Ryuma sipping coffee while Miyabi lounges. Ryuma remarks how relaxing this is compared to camping, and Miyabi quietly agrees. Suddenly, a mysterious voice calls out Ryuma's name, startling him from his calm. Recognizing the voice, he looks toward his glowing adventurer's card as the source. His special silver guild card, resting on his phone, pulses with a brilliant light. A hologram of Sumeragi Ryutaru appears, cheerfully announcing that he has finally connected. Ryuma stares in utter shock, stammering the grandmaster's name in complete disbelief.